Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Everybody out there in Radio Land, Dave Scott here at Spaced Out Radio. How y'all doing? Hope you're having a great night tonight. I am. It's never been better. Never been better. And I'm having a great time tonight. And Julie Parker is our guest. We're going to get into some serious past life regression therapy, find out the woo behind that. Dirty Filth is here for the cartoon. Before we say hello to all of them, let's say hello to all of you. In the race, in the gold medal position, we have Race Fan and B taking home a silver, while Michael Morris grabs the bronze medal tonight. Les Paul Holland is looking good in Australia. Renard the Fox, welcome to SOR Chat. John Hinoyosa, gorgeous Kathy Hughes, King of Waco Mundo, how are you? And one of our favorite veterans tuning in, we got the Black Dragon here. How you doing, my friend? Thank you for your wonderful service. Awesome Ann Palmer, good to see you here. The lovely Dizzy Me is here. She'll be signing autographs for the first time after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Moving on, we got Holly. How you doing, man? Steam Train Mark in Australia. Thank you for letting me know from the future that I am alive tomorrow. I appreciate that. Alien Critter, what's going on? Thanks for joining us. Mennonite Abe, good to have you back. And there's Brown Dwarf. Nice to see you again. Evan Walters, thanks for coming on in. And who else do we have here? Terry Brown is here. Terry Brown will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, to the right of the studio. Huckleberry Charles, thank you for joining us. Lovely Lisa Compton, good to see you. The real Paulie T, good to have you here rather than the fake one. And we have video game player. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Bigfoot Michigan Rob, thanks for coming on in. Mr. Lurks-a-Lot, good to see you. Sweet Donna C, thank you for joining us. And who else has joined us here? Dirty Filth, good to have you back, buddy. I can't wait to see what you draw tonight. Sally Elka looking lovely tonight. Stunning Pam Smith. Tyler Howell, how you doing, bud? Nice to have you back. Oh, wearing number 13 in your program, starting on right wing, we have Lars Jansson from Luleå, Sweden. Yes. Nicholas Shaughnessy, Noble Patrick. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. And, oh, there's the lovely Chris. Teen, how you doing? Nice to see you. Gorgeous Jedi, thanks for coming on in. Who else is here? Stunning Pam Smith. And let's scroll on back here. Be More Dan, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. And Cedric, what's happening, my man? How you been doing? Felipe Fierro, how are you? Galactic, welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for joining us. My man, Millennium. Penman, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Let's start the radio side here. There we go. And who else is here? Sweetly Morbid Bear, looking gorgeous tonight. Thank you for joining us. And I think we're caught up. We're caught up. Good crowd tonight. Good crowd so far. Remember, if you're new here, hit subscribe or give us a thumbs up, thumbs down. And after the show, don't forget to leave a comment down below because it really helps with our algorithms. And hi, gorgeous Aussie Ange and Blues in G. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. We really do appreciate it. And we're going to get going here probably, 30 seconds? 30 seconds, I think. Yeah, 30 seconds. There we go. Dog Next Door, welcome back. And don't forget, guys, I have the SOR store open on our website, spacedoutradio.com. We got a lot of cool, fun swag there for you. Travis W., how you doing, buddy? Nice to see you. We're going to rock it out tonight, guys. We're going to have some fun. Julie Parker is our guest. And, man, I love shows like this. I really, really do. All right, it's that time. Let's do this thing. Horns up. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Another power show for you tonight. Julie Parker comes in to talk about past life regression. Then in hour 3, we got another great story from our resident swamp dweller. And Super Duke will be here for Cryptid Report. Shirky Poo later on will have the news. Julie Parker is a certified facilitator of 6 years of the Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, as taught by the internationally renowned Dolores Cannon. She facilitates Qhht sessions, past life regression, and life between life sessions out of Edmonton, Alberta. Yes, she is an Oilers fan, and that's how she got on this show, because I'm an Oilers fan since 1979. In 2015, Julie had a profound, spontaneous spiritual experience involving the afterlife and was immediately led to the work of past life regressionist Dolores Cannon and her beautiful method. Since then, she's never looked back and now helps counsel people to find their own Zen, Qi, and way in this universe. Let's go right to her. Julie Parker, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Really good, thanks.
Excellent. Julie, let's learn a little bit about you. I mean, so many people I have talked to over the last 7.5 years of doing this show that really, really, sometime between 2011, actually, I should say 2010 and late 2015, had profound effects on their entire lives. They never looked into the spirituality. They never looked into UFOs. They never looked into ghosts. They never looked into regression or past lives. And then all of a sudden, like a ton of bricks, it's hit many of us. Let's go back in time and learn a little bit about you. What happened in 2015 to you, and what was life like before that?
Well, I just had a 7-year anniversary actually on June 9th. I actually marked the anniversary this year. But I'd actually gone to bed that night at about 10:30 at night, and I was wide awake. Typically I would lay in bed and read for a little while. And I was actually sitting up reading. And I went to bed at 10:30, and the last time I looked at the clock, it was actually 11:15. And somewhere after that, I was actually in another dimension. And I'm talking frequency, I'm talking light, I'm talking vibration, harmonic, and everyone was there. you were there. Dirty filth over there. I had this sensation of somebody being with me, maybe a guide or something. I felt like somebody was with me though. The one thing I do know though is everybody was there. Somewhere, I don't know, it might have been closer to about 10 after 11. What took me out of the experience was actually my brain, because something about my consciousness kicked in and it was like, oh my God, am I dead? Did I die? Boom, out. Still sitting on the bed. And when I say like light harmonic, even the sensation of color, these to this day, 7 years later, I have struggled to articulate this because we don't even have that here. I was never a sci-fi person. I still have yet to sit through Lord of the Rings or anything fantasy genre. Like I just wasn't capable of making that up.
So, what was your life like before this experience?
You know, I was always curious, like I was. I've also, over the decades, I've done a deep dive into like astrology. I was actually a highly intuitive person, mediumship abilities. I did a deep dive into astrology, tarot, and oracles, and all of that, numerology, you name it. I knew there was more, but I was raised in a what you would probably call a conservative house. So I didn't do the exploring like till probably my 20s on. And I think it was actually my intuition that was leading me to explore. But when it came to quote unquote, spiritual activities, I didn't understand consciousness, even though now I'm able to actually recollect experiences, going into my body when I was a child and a teenager and in my 20s, but not understanding really what that was, and some multi-dimensional experiences that were when I was much younger that kind of came through almost like a dream. Now they make sense. But when that experience happened to me in 2015, I was leading an ordinary life. I wasn't doing anything special. I wasn't meditating. Yeah, it was
Okay.
it was organic.
You know what? And for many of us who opened up between 2010 and 2015, it was very organic, and it was almost like a punch to the guts of being told that this is your new life path and you're going to sacrifice a lot. You're going to sacrifice money, you're going to sacrifice friends, you're going to sacrifice family, but this is
Yeah.
what we want you to do. Did you happen to go through that as well?
I actually very much did, because immediately after that experience, I mean, I probably wept the entire night, because what it was profound knowing. So it's not something you can, describe like a movie kind of thing. It was this completeness, it was a knowing, it was understanding that everything had its place, even things you just wouldn't think. Um, and so, of course, I told everybody immediately after it happened. Like my circle of friends wasn't that big, but nonetheless, you could kind of see that polite look in people's eyes where they're like,
The one.
yeah. And the other thing was, immediately after the experience, one of the things that stuck with me most profoundly over the years is, even though my 3D mind, my consciousness snapped me back for the next hour and a half, I could feel it actually kind of lifting from me slowly. It was very much a multi-dimensional experience. It's so hard to articulate. I wish I could do better.
For you though, how did it affect your life effective immediately when, for people who are just tuning on in, you had this, going to bed just like you normally would, reading a book,
And
and
I
the next
wasn't
thing
even tired.
you know, the next thing you know, you're in some different zone, some different consciousness, some different, area that you're not familiar with. And, you know, for a lot of us, when we go through that, you know, it's tough because we want to believe. We need to believe. We yearn to believe because it was so real to us. For you, as you tried to transcribe what had happened to you before you told your friends and family, what were you telling yourself about this profound out of body, out of dimensional experience?
I was absolutely convinced that I had gone to, and I don't carry to put, traditional beliefs, but I was absolutely positive I'd been to some sort of I don't want to say heaven, though that's one of the words I Googled. Source. We were all there. I knew we were all there, but we were embodied in this frequency and color. I get fixated like when I look at the clouds, because if you stare at the whitest part of the cloud, it's no longer just white. If you see that particular cloud, you'll see this luminous glow, and you can't even put a word to the color because it's actually not just white. And that luminosity was part of the experience. And I, I wept. I wept for hours. And to this day, always say that was more real than anything here.
Why would you say it was source or heaven? What did it look like?
That's kind of the problem where I struggle with the framing, because I was in this space of light and I knew everybody was there. I knew it. It wasn't even a question. My conscious mind kind of came in at the end. So I was actually in this experience. It could have been a nanosecond or it could have been 25 minutes. I have no idea. Um, but I was in it. I was a part of it. And I wasn't here in my Julie body. It was kind of like I'd snuck home for a minute. Just want to look at it that way. And my mind could have never, in my wildest dreams of hoping and wondering and pondering and contemplating, I couldn't have come up with that in a million years.
So who was Julie Parker before that? Were you introverted, extroverted, party girl, concert goer? Who were you before that?
I was probably like a really friendly introvert. Kind of artistic, friendly, love talking to people. But a homebody. I had my little geeky things I like to kind of read about and learn about, documentary fan, that kind of thing. But like I said, I for 30 years I'd been drawn to like astrology and tarot and all of that. And in astrology, I wasn't as much drawn to pop astrology, though that's all I could find information of. But I just knew there was something more to the planets and the stars than what we were understanding. And of course, now, 30 years later, I'm like, holy, there's way more to that.
Were you like me? The first thing you did was go to Google, try to figure this out.
This is how I found Dolores Cannon, because the next morning, I don't think it was even 12 hours later, I'm sitting there. I probably finally quit crying and I was drinking a coffee or something and didn't know what to do with this. But the one thing that stuck with me so strongly from the minutes afterwards to this day, the only thing that stuck inside of me was share, share. Like,
What
and
do you
I, it,
believe in
it's
life after love?
what's that?
Do you believe in life after love? Share
Oh,
song.
absolutely. Share, classic. But it was very much about sharing. And while it's a multi-dimensional space in a way that we're not able to perceive here, we're living in a different kind of reality here. But what I was able to perceive of it had everything to do with completeness, wholeness, you are so divine. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying divine in a religious connotation. It's like you are divine. You all are. We all come from this place. Even the ones that piss you off, they're there too.
Oh, I hear you there. I hear you there. Julie, for you, as you started on your quest in trying to learn about what you went through, what were some of the questions you had for yourself as we start to define what you do now?
Oh my gosh, I got to be honest. The hardest thing for me to overcome, and I still struggle with it to this day at times, not as much, but I still do. It was the worthiness. I was like, how could something like this, so magnificent, so huge, happen to somebody like me? Like, isn't this what happens to yogis on a mountaintop or something? You know, I think that was actually my probably most profound thing that I had to work through about being worthy because I, like everybody out there, I've had a life and it hasn't always been charming. You know what I mean? So it was just like, wow, like this is us. This is all of us. And I think I receive a profound joy because the people I meet, let me be honest, they're not woo woo. People are from every background. They are elderly, they're professionals, they're construction, they're oil, they're executives, whatever. Think of a profession, and over almost 800 sessions, I've met them. And it's just my profound joy. Well, first off, I feel like I never meet a stranger anymore. Truth. But to do endeavor to do my best that they have that experience, that feeling, that energy,
Right.
whatever it is they're meant to have. Yeah.
I'm curious, and pardon me if this is a little too personal. As you started out on your journey and you started to move forward, that this was your calling, this is what you needed to do, you needed to somehow resort to getting the message out to people and helping them any possible way that you can. Your inner circle that you had, how did they react to everything that was going on around you? Because I know many people, including myself, we lost a lot of friends, we lost a lot of family. There's certain family you can't talk to about it. I mean,
Yeah.
it can be a very lonely existence.
It is a lonely existence. And just in you saying that made me want to write down a note to touch on later. Um, It actually was very lonely. Like, I was really fortunate because my kids listened, and my friendship circle is not huge because I am kind of a little on the introverted side, right? So I know a lot of people, but my inner circle is small. And everybody was awesome. They were listening and they wanted to understand, but it was so hard to convey. I was still trying to wrap my mind around understanding because when you hear about those things, and you didn't hear about those things much in 2015, you just didn't. And I people listened, but I felt very isolated too, um, because you can't keep talking to people about it, right? But it
Very
sent
true.
me on.
And a lot of people, when they're going through their own spiritual awakening, don't understand that it's all consuming. You really, you really want to, this is all you want to talk about, this is all you want to do, because once you get hit by it, realistically, the only thing that matters is is learning and
Yeah.
getting other people's opinion who've gone down this road much faster and much quicker than you have, maybe years of experience, maybe they're opening up at the same time as you,
Yeah.
and trying to find those people that you can trust their opinion,
Yeah.
because there's so much benign garbage out there regarding this. I mean,
Yeah.
I can understand where you felt lonely.
Yeah. It did. Like, I was grateful, like, that I had the few people I could talk to about it. But like I said, you can't keep talking about it, and it's just an all-consuming thing. I had one friend, who, I mean, 7 years later, I'm still yakking about it, and she's still listening. So I'm very fortunate that way.
Well,
But she's
the good news is you have decided over the last few years to make your passion and your own quest for knowledge into an area where you're now trying to help others doing this. So, how did you get into, as we got about 3 minutes to go before we go to break here, how did you get into learning about hypnotherapy and what got you into this?
I'll tell you what, I was led to it directly. I didn't have to wait or even look around. The very next day, like 10 a.m., I'm sitting there with my laptop going to Google. Heaven, Nirvana, Utopia. And actually, it was the YouTube, I think it was like their main recommended page or something. Dolores Cannon was right smack in the middle of that. And I think the video was the video Between Death and Life. I think that might have been the video. And I was like, oh my God, what's this? And it was funny for all the reading. I knew about Brian Weiss and, Raymond Moody and all these other greats, but I'd never come across Dolores. And I went down the Dolores Cannon vortex, binge watched every video she had, bought every book. That's literally, I found her the next day, and by the next spring, I was a practitioner. It wasn't even a question to become a practitioner. It just,
May I may I ask what you were doing previous to this?
let me tell you, I've done everything over my life. I've done everything from like, bartending, retail management. I bartended when I was like super young and had a thicker skin. But, I've been retail management, and previously, I had actually been running a nonprofit location, and I had left that job not long before. I think I had just finished a semester of college. I'm also an artist from over 20 years. So, yeah, I had a very diverse resume, but I really understand that now because it makes it easy to sit with people, you know?
Well, you've seen all sorts from bartending right through, nonprofit. I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost like this was all a stepping stone to this momentous occasion in your life.
Oh, I was absolutely convinced there was no accidents, no coincidences, and I've believed that ever since. I've had synchronicities. Here's one I can share with you later, but I've had synchronicities that are just stunning. Synchronicities happen in the middle of sessions. You know what I mean? Like it's unbelievable. I love it. To me, it's like on track.
Well, that is awesome. And Julie, when we return from the break here at the bottom of the hour, I want to get into past life regression and all sorts of regression type therapy. I had my first regression therapy back in March. I I still haven't heard the tape. I don't remember it except for snippets. What I thought was 20 minutes ended up being 2.5 hours. And
Time distortion.
oh, tell me about it. We're going to learn about past life regression. Was I really Cleopatra in my previous life? Hey, I'm still that good looking today, so why not? Spaced Out Radio goes down the woo train on regression therapy next. All right, we're clear.
That's the time distortion is a huge part of it. I have that routinely. I've started taping it for people's recordings. Because they're like, oh, it's like 20 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, no.
Oh, I know. I still have to get the recording of it.
Yeah. It's worth it to listen to it because I'll tell you what, I literally had this conversation with somebody yesterday. I did a session yesterday, and there's something energetic about us. We're quantum beings, and you can hear it like, the next day or something. But you go back like 6 months later, and you're perceiving things differently. You're hearing new things, and you go back 18 months. It's just incredible, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it is. Want to give a shout out to Mitchell Haywood. Where are you hiding, brother? Where are you? I hear you're not feeling well. Come give old Uncle Davy a hug. It'll make you feel well, along with some Vicks Vapor Rub or the Vicks inhaler, which I use at showtime. Come log in, get yourself in the chat room, Mitchell. I know you're listening. I know you're listening. Get your ass in here. Dirty Filth, how you doing down there?
Struggling to hit the unmute button. I'm doing good. 1 second here.
Well, let's take a look at what we're drawing here so far. Nothing.
Oh, there's a lot going on, Dave. Trust me.
Nothing that's been drawn. That piece of paper looks blank.
That's fine. That's what it's supposed to look like. That's to keep you. Make sure you stay here to the end of the show, Dave.
I'm here later than you every night, and you bail on me.
Oh, I'm here in spirit. Trust me. As I'm sawing logs in the background.
Hey, Mama Susan from Edmonton is here.
We got 3 Edmontonians in one channel.
Mama Susan.
Yes. Mama Susan. Mama Susan. Mama Susan. Mama Susan.
Well, I don't know.
Mama Susan.
That's pretty cool.
Hey.
We got
Danny wants
here
to know,
realize.
Julie, Danny wants to know in the chat room how much a regression therapy session costs with you.
Okay, I have 2 versions. I have what I call a mini regression, which is an awesome entry-level regression. And so it's 90 minutes for $90. It's not QHHT. I never do that. That's a 4 to 5 hour day kind of thing. The mini regression, though, is 90 minutes for $90. And I take you through several warm-ups. And then I take you to meet your spirit guide, and you see your guide. You see your guide. You get their name, a gift, and a message. And then I take you through a past life. And your highest self will decide what that past life is. And then a full QHHT session is similar, but much more in depth. You're laying down for it. You will typically see at least 3 past lives. There's a life between life thing that happens often. And past lives, I'll say past lives loosely, because people go all over the place. And you will also have a conversation with your highest self, which is a way to tap into your highest wisdom and get questions answered.
I apologize. Mama Susan's actually from Mundare, close to Vegreville.
That's close enough.
Okay.
Best sausage out there. Mundare sausage, Dave.
That is where I get my kubasa from.
Really?
From Mundare, from Stanici's.
Stanici's, man. Look at that.
That's the only. On here. That is the only kubasa to eat, man. Is Stanici's kubasa. The rest of it is garbage.
Okay, I'll bring you a ring when we go to Vegas next year.
Hell, man, my dad's freezer is full. Every time he comes up, he drops it. But yeah, you can bring the kubasa, man. You can totally bring the kubasa. I'm good with that. Hey, D. Cohen, how you doing, buddy? And Dazzling Dawn is here. And the gorgeous D. Swagger. Everybody else pronounces it kielbasa sausage. Kielbasa.
That's wrong. You know how many letters I'm going to have to send out to people tonight?
I know.
About pronouncing words incorrectly?
Like you pronounce foyer when it's foyer.
You just pronounced it correctly, and then you ruined it.
Here we go, everyone. We pass the second half of Spaced Out Radio here. I'm hanging out. How are you doing out there, Radioland? My name is Dave Scott, sitting here at SOR headquarters with an itchy eyebrow, so I'm scratching it. But I'm enjoying it. It's going well. Going well. We got a great show tonight going on here. Julie Parker is our guest. Before we bring Julie back in, we want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Julie Parker's here from Edmonton, Alberta. She is a past life regressionist, hypnotherapist, QHHT specialist. We're going to get into it all right now. So if you haven't boarded the Woo train yet, it is time for you to board. Yes, I need an all aboard. Somebody yelling in the background, all aboard! Here we go. Julie, back. Oh, nice. Very nice.
It's funny that you say the train, because that's one of my warm-up visualizations I like to use.
Well, we'll have to get you'll have to go to our store on our website and get yourself a Woo Train mug or t-shirt.
Oh, absolutely. I didn't know you had that. That's great.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Woo Train is always rolling around here. Always rolling.
That's awesome.
For people who don't understand past life regression, what is it?
Okay. One of my favorite ways to explain this is because you are a much bigger being than you perceive in your day-to-day life, because life is noisy and, we get stressed, we get busy, but you actually you can carry memories from other times and other places. And that's a lot for people to take in. And a lot of people actually will come for a past life regression just because they're like, have I lived before? And I'm like, oh yeah, you have. What I love about this particular method of it is the person is receiving their own images spontaneously through the guidance. Like, I'm guiding them into a place where they start getting their own stuff, right? And people are, I think, after 6 years of doing this, I've become more and more in awe with just how amazing people are. And I've been to probably every time period in history. Seriously.
Okay, so can anybody do this? Can anybody go back
Yeah.
in time? Because I think the biggest misconception is when you talk about past lives that somebody is always somebody famous. They're
Yeah.
never the clerk in a hotel in 1915 in the Wild West of Arizona. They're never a soldier fighting in the trenches of World War One. They're never, they're never
Yeah.
a barmaid going back to 1774 in some pub in Ireland.
I've met them all.
They're always somebody like I said, they're always Cleopatra or Napoleon or some famous general or whatever. But nobody ever admits to being the guy who scrubbed the toilets in ancient Greece.
What's so cool, through periods of time, we've actually many times, like while I've met people that might have had some like royalty in there and that kind of thing. Uh, maybe a few people that were figureheads. People led very humble lives. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it was about the day to day and stuff, but the detail that comes through is so rich. One of the things we do in past life regression is once you get into that life, you're actually seeing what you look like. You are most people, some people will see it from outside the body, but the majority of people are experiencing it from inside of the body. They can feel the weight of the fabric. Um, they can feel if they have a beard. They can feel if they've changed gender because, I'm a girl, but I haven't always been a girl throughout time, right? And I think that's usually one of the biggest things that shocks people. They're like, "Oh my God," you got some big burly guy. He's like, "I was a woman." Yes, you were. um, I'm not really hung up on the famous thing. I'm really hung up on the client having the deepest experience that they can have, the most fulfilling, but also too, because you're guided through, you'll see where you lived, and depending on what period of time, you've lived in some interesting places. And you're guided through several important events. And, sometimes I've even had, and you will be actually guided to the end of that life, but people actually really treasure that, believe it or not. You know, you find out just how big you really are, and they sometimes will experience that life between life thing. Sometimes they hop into the next life.
Well, what is, for the average soul out there, if you're somebody who believes we all have souls like I do,
Yeah.
what's the average turnaround here? Do we get a 5-year break, a 3-year break, a 2-day? Do we have to sign contracts like we're in the military and go on tour?
I actually, because early on, even after that experience in 2015, like I was kind of linear thinking, but time is not linear. And I think I've had a number of clients that have experienced timelines that would actually probably overlap with this one. So, and maybe even future. It's
Okay.
it's an amazing thing. If I was to go by like Edgar Casey and some of those other people out there that I really enjoy, it seems that there's a bit of a trend where, maybe somebody from the grandparents' generation might, come into the world as a grandchild or something. That's something that's popped up eerily a lot, but I really don't think there's a hard and fast rule to this because that great beyond doesn't have the same structure that we do.
Well, I mean, the thing is, what we're also dealing with too is we are also dealing with the idea of death.
Yeah.
And if there is any subject that potentially scares any human being, it is
Yeah.
death. We
Yeah.
don't like it. We don't like talking about it. We don't like looking at our age. For many of us, like for me, for instance, I'll talk about myself here for a second. I hate the fact that I'm getting older. I hate the fact that next year I'm turning 50. It scares me because I know that I'm on the downside.
You're just turning 50.
Yeah, I know. I look
I'm
much
turning
older.
56. I'm like, are you kidding me? Life got better when I turned 50. I don't know. It just did.
Well, the point that I'm getting at is on an age scale. I mean, you're only. I'm also a firm believer. You're only as old as how you feel, and I still feel like I'm in my 20s, which is a good thing. But I'll be honest with you, death scares the living daylights out of me. It does because there's all this what ifs. Because many of us in our generations, we were brought up believing in something, whether it's Christianity or Catholicism or or whatever it may be. We brought up believing that there is some sort of afterlife. And then as we start finding our own paths on this planet, we start looking at the idea that, well, what if it's not true? What if it's
Yeah.
not real? What if Darwin is right and it is a one and done shot here? I mean,
I can't believe anybody believes that. I'm like, oh my God, if you knew how big you were. Yeah.
but the idea is that's all we really have to go on, because there is still, when it comes to past life regression, a lot of question marks regarding whether or not what we're seeing is true
Yeah.
comparatively to what could be perceived as imagination.
I think because if you want to look at your soul guiding your session, which is 100% my belief, and I set my intention before somebody comes, that I want you to have your questions answered. I want you to feel fulfilled, and I want you to realize how big you are. And that is my personal intention in doing this, because I feel like that's why I got led onto this path to begin with. And so, when people are in a past life, true enough, they might leapfrog right on into the next life and not see that. But I am actually prepared to guide somebody through that. And it's not scary. That's the interesting thing, because you're able to see it with detachment, like you're watching a movie. But there is that moment of transition is that life between life portion is beautiful. There's so much beauty there. But I trust that highest self, your soul. Your soul is only going to guide you to what you're ready for. And so if this is not something you're prepared for, then you'll probably leapfrog into the next life kind of thing. We call it leapfrogging, like when they're poof off to go, and I'm like, hey, okay. um, but if that's something that's been pressing on your heart or something, your soul is at the wheel. And let me tell you, your soul loves you. We walk around so many times and we're feeling small and we're feeling insignificant, and we're just like this little cork in the ocean or something. But no, that's not it. Um, you are a divine expression, whether you're aware of it or not. You know what I mean? And you don't have to start meditating or something. You're divine no matter what.
No, and I can understand that for everybody who is kind of going through that. I guess what I'm saying is, you know, death is still that scary object at the end of the game that
Hmm.
nobody escapes. There is
Hmm.
no winners or losers. The billionaires still get cremated or buried in the ground, much like the destitute and the poor. And it's you can't take your toys with you.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest sin of it all. You can't take your toys with you. But
You have better toys there. You don't want to take your toys with you.
well, I hope so. But take me through uh, what you would do to guide someone through regression therapy.
What do I do to guide them through? Okay,
Yeah.
so for a QHHT session, my sessions tend to run about 4 to 5 hours. If a little more time was needed, I'm good. I get to set my own hours, work for myself, right? And so when the person shows up, we'll actually have a conversation for a little bit. And I have people prepare questions before they come for their highest self. And when I'm saying your highest self, I'm saying your soul. You are a soul. Um, and you have a higher wisdom. You have those big answers to things where the mind is racing and, it has things going on. But this place of higher wisdom is blunt and to the point. And so we'll have a conversation and we'll go over the questions. And sometimes, too, what happens is people often add more questions to their list. And then I'm going to guide you through. I like to guide people through warm up visualizations. I find that just so helpful and they're fun. people have stuff start happening sometimes when they're doing the warm-ups, you know. And so I take people through a couple of warm-up visualizations. And in my particular sessions, I love for people to meet their spirit guide, their spirit angel, whatever that is. And that's beautiful. Hands down, one of my favorite things. People meet their guides, and guides have been everything from energy beings, like family. Um, there's even been animals show up because our guides are energy. They're giving you a presentation that's appropriate for you. And I find it so touching, right? They come through with names, and many times these names are names that you just couldn't wrap your mind around. And I've gone on to Google them, and it's been a word I've never heard before, but it meant blessing or something in another language, like just amazing. And then they will also receive a gift from their guide. And from there, I will segue into the past lives. And so you're usually typically looking at about 2.5 hours of the hypnosis portion. Um, and, I segue into the past lives. And depending on that person and that person's soul's journey, they could experience life between life, all sorts of things through that. And I'll tell you something, it's a loving experience. It's a loving experience. It's a nurturing experience. And the number one thing I say is it's empowering. Um, the number one thing that people say after a session is they're like, oh my God, I feel so light. They just feel so light. And after the past life portion, that's when we have the conversation with the highest self. My favorite thing about having the conversation with the highest self is we've been in this society where we feel like everything else is the expert, everybody else is the expert, and you have to be qualified. But I'll tell you what, you're on a soul's journey, and that intuition, which is right above the belly button, is kind of like, when you're scared and you have that fear thing and you feel that in your belly below the navel, right? The truth, the good stuff, it's coming through the heart, it's coming through the solar plexus. And I love that because I want anybody and everybody I meet, trust yourself. This is good stuff, but you'll notice if you're sensing something or if you're feeling love and whatever that is, you feel it first before the brain catches that.
But do you have to love yourself in order to properly read what's going on or to get messages from your guides?
Okay, well, no, you don't have to love yourself, but learning to love yourself is actually one of the biggest reasons you're here. Okay? Because when you love yourself, if you want to think about energy, okay, if you think about, maybe you fell in love or you got that dream job or something like that, and your energy lifts up and you're just like, woohoo, especially like if you just fell in love. You're a teenager and you're like, oh, he looked at me. You know what I mean? And you're so light and airy. But when you're feeling depressed and all these other things that happen to us, you're actually cloaking your energy in, right? Learning to love ourselves is one of the biggest challenges. But I think I've seen profound change come out of sessions because you realize you start cutting yourself a little slack. You're a human being. You weren't born with angel wings, okay? Or maybe you were. I haven't met you yet, but
No, probably a red pitchfork. That's probably for another time. But I want to ask you, as we got about 5 minutes to go here before we got to go to break at the top of the hour here. For you, as we move forward, I mean, what do people see when you take them back? Are they just seeing their human types of persona? Are they seeing themselves as animals? Are they seeing themselves as extraterrestrials?
all of the above. Whatever their soul decides they're ready for. um, all of the above. People have experienced what it's like to be consciousness. I know it sounds bizarre, but yeah, true story. You are bigger and you're much more eternal than you remember.
Right.
Um, People are the most common. And you know what? I trust the soul on this. I got to tell you, like I set my intention before every single session, and I trust the soul. And somebody that's just getting their toes wet is probably, not going to necessarily see something that would jar them. Do you know what I mean? But
Right.
it's always exactly what they needed. And it's always relevant. At the end of the day, like when I'm talking with the client after everything's over, there's just a beautiful, everything's always relevant, everything, the way it aligned and stuff, those little divine synchronicities and things. I'll tell you something, if I've got enough time. I don't know if I have enough time.
We got 3.5 minutes.
Okay. Um, I had somebody that's from northern Alberta come down for a session in February, and it was a blinding blizzard. It was just unbelievable. And I actually didn't think they would come because people do come from afar. I've had people from like Prince George and BC and Manitoba. Nunavut was my farthest person. So anyhow, this person came down for their session. I was so shocked that they showed up because it's like I would have I would have moved the session, right? Anyhow, we went through the session. And at some point, their particular guide had mentioned to them that one of the signs they gave them was something red. Um, but as we got further into the session, I was giving a visualization and I randomly had a ladybug pop into my mind. And this is the middle of February. I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sessions and never once mentioned a ladybug. Truth, right? But this ladybug popped into my mind and I mentioned it. And after the session was over, the client said, why did you say ladybug? And I said, I don't know. It just popped into my mind. So I thought I should say it. And so, anyhow, in the middle of February, up north in, snowy Alberta, there had been a ladybug crawling across the surface of a toy the night before they came. So
No
you
way.
can say it's nothing. You can say it's coincidence, but I'll say I know it was awesome.
For people who don't know what it's like to live day and night in minus 45-degree Fahrenheit or Celsius weather in northern Alberta, there are no bugs
No
sticking there.
ladybugs.
No ladybugs.
Right?
No ladybugs.
Yeah.
It's like I have a video of my daughter from about 5-6 years ago where she caught a fairy on film in her room.
Yes.
And I've never released it because A, I don't want to, B, I don't know how to edit properly to blur out her face. And C, when people look at it, they'll say, oh, that's just a fly or that's just a bug or whatever. But the thing is, the majority of people who are making those assumptions don't really understand what it's like when you film something in the middle
Yeah.
of January or February where it's minus 30 degrees Celsius, which is damn cold, by the way,
Yeah.
damn cold.
It is, right?
And that the bugs do not come out to play
No.
in those temperatures. They're either hibernating or they die, or they're way
They're
underground where it's nice, right? They're not buried away flying around, in the
not
middle.
several hours north of Edmonton.
Exactly.
That's beautiful, that fairy. That
Yeah.
Boy, that's something I'd want to see. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Let us go to break here at the top of the hour. We have Julie Parker for another hour here. We're going to get into regression therapy. What can we see? How do we do it? Can anybody do it? What are we looking at? How do we know it's not our imagination? It's going to be a fun time. We're also going to take some of your questions as well. So if you're in one of our chat rooms, put your questions in capital letters. We will get to them. Spaced Out Radio's Hour 2 next. All right, we are clear. Hello, gorgeous Gloria. Grantavius Mustache, how you doing? YJ Overlander, how you doing, buddy? And there, I think we're caught up right there. Dennis Zuniga, one of our favorite veterans who listens to this show. We love you, man. All right, we're going to turn things over to Dirty Filth. And Julie, we got about a 5.5 minute break. I'll be right back, okay?
Awesome.
All right, Dirty Filth, it's all yours, buddy.
It's all mine. Oh yeah, I'm gonna tie everybody up and steal your stereos.
Now I'm trying to see what you're working on, but the light is bright.
Oh, I apologize. Like I said, I don't know how. I haven't figured this out yet. So, if anybody can give Dirty Phil some pointers on how to make this look better, because when I look at it, it's fine, but my camera, it looks really.
Yeah.
It's bright enough that it looks nice to me on my screen, but I'm not sure how it looks to everybody else. So
yeah,
I did a few drawings just by myself on my like YouTube channel thing, which it's not important. There's only one cool UFO video there, but other than that, it's just I'm not sure. But see, the thing is though is I do the cartoon. It just looks like blotches of color and junk until I actually ink it, and then at the end it's nice. But
and I could see shapes there. I just couldn't make it with shapes work because of the light.
Yeah, sometimes I hold it like not very well. I guess if I turn it to the side or something.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
But then,
okay, yeah.
I'm a slob with the water with my watercolor. I just slap it on there, and it's a complete mess. But it works out for me.
No, that's
thundering out.
Like that's awesome though, right? Like that captures the essence of it, just letting it flow.
Normally, I don't ramble too much on here. I usually ramble after the show. When I'm
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Well, actually, when Dave leaves me, I gotta try to keep the conversation going here. And usually, I just mention stuff like I think I don't know. I keep trying to mention that because obviously I'm drawing Sasquatch here, but I keep saying they were talking about cryptids and stuff the other night, and I keep saying somebody has to get shredded up by a dog man or broken in half by a Sasquatch or like thrown off a wall or a mountainside, and someone's gonna film it. Like they can film UFOs and everything in San Diego, but
I actually grew up. I grew up northern Vancouver Island, and the old loggers back in the day, there used to be all sorts of tales about the Sasquatch in northern Vancouver Island. I mean, I'm talking 60s and 70s.
Well, they say that when they had those forest fires that there were Sasquatch that were seen running across roads and junk as people trying to escape. I wonder if there's any stories that have lightened or litten. I'm not sure.
Oh, right.
If there was any stories of if anybody's seen anything last year during that. Dave mentioned that last night too. I think it was last night or recently. But you still can't actually go to that. They had it on CTV today.
Did they?
Excuse me. And they were saying...
oh, that's tomorrow's the anniversary, isn't it?
Yeah, they apparently still can't go back there. So
yeah.
And they had a bunch of people in there, and they're like, lost everything, and it sucks. It's like a year later. But nonetheless, though, I don't know. I've never seen any Sasquatch stuff. I don't get a chance to go to the forest very often. I do go down to the river valley in Edmonton all the time. I get a super secret reading space. I go there and read books and
do you?
Cartoons. Yeah, it overlooks Terwilliger Park. It's kind of neat. I was actually out there one day with my pal, and there was a light floating around there, and I just figured it was like somebody with their dog or whatever. But it seemed to where it is during the day if you look at the same spot. And of course, we didn't have a camera or anything.
Yeah.
Plastically. But apparently it was around where it's fairly a swampy area. And it just moved too freely to be like somebody's dog or something. But
wow.
It's by Lessard. You go over to there's an area near there, and it overlooks the Terwilliger Dog Park.
Yeah. See, I'm not a native Edmontonian, so where's Lessard? Give it to me
It's
in east, west, north, south.
it's in the West End by Collingwood, south of West Edmonton Mall.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's where I am, south of West Ed.
Right on. Yeah, that's how I think in terms here. I mean, I told you where I was, but
Well, I don't know. All the lingo's changed, right? So
yeah. I think there's a
downtown.
lot of new neighborhoods too. This is my second time living in Edmonton, but I've spent a lot of time over the years and on Vancouver Island and yeah,
I
all
went
over
I
the
to
hated
place.
I hated living on Vancouver Island. Beautiful
Huh?
place to visit. I hated
Yeah.
Vancouver. I lived there for
Did you?
2 years, and it never felt like home.
What
Never
part
felt.
of the island were you on?
I was in Nanaimo and Parksville.
Ew,
Okay.
Parksville.
Yeah. See, I grew up north end of the island, like that's where I grew up, and then I was living in Victoria off and on, but I lived in Victoria off and on in the old days when it was actually like more like a small
I'm
town.
going to cut you off right there because we got 10 seconds. Thank you to Sally for the amazing super chat. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on Spaced Out Radio on a nightly basis. Here we go, everyone.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do we got here for us, Clam? We have Geophyte. Geophyte is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Julie Parker. She is a hypnotherapist out of Edmonton, Alberta, dealing with past life regressions, death, and how we can figure it all out. Yeah, how we can figure it all out. Is it worth it? Can we do it? Well, Julie believes we can. Julie, welcome back.
Hi.
Hi. How you doing?
Awesome. I'm actually really enjoying this.
Well, I thought you would. Which is very, very nice. Very nice. Let us get to some audience questions here because we always like to get our audience involved right in hour 2 here. And we're going to start off with Lara here, who is asking, do you work with people via Zoom?
Not for QHHT, but I do for the mini regressions, a little 90-minute session where you do the visualizations and you meet your guide, and you can do one past life regression. I do those by Zoom, but QHHT is a deeper thing. It's a lighter trance when I do the minis. It's kind of like being in a deep daydream, but when you're in the deeper session of QHHT, it's very much like living in the dream.
All right. Explain what QHHT is for people who may not know.
Okay, well, it's also known as Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, and it was actually pioneered by Dolores Cannon. And if you go on YouTube and type in Dolores Cannon, I'm not joking, you'll probably find 200 videos. Dolores Cannon did this for a number of years till she passed away in late 2014. It's a proprietary method, so it's actually only taught through the DoloresCannon.com Academy. But it's just a beautiful method. Upon taking it, I quickly took the next level, and I've never looked back. I'm actually somebody that's qualified in other areas of hypnosis, but this is my passion, QHHT. So, yeah.
Excellent. All right, let's move on to another question here. Let's go to Felipe. Is it true that glimpses of past lives show through your present hobbies, fears, talents, etc.?
Actually, it can. It can. People actually often discover so many times, we're in such a busy lifestyle, and people have talents from other lifetimes where it was kind of like a little inkling, and they'd be like, oh, I'd like to try that. But it was actually something that they could do. Somebody that was drawn to writing, but they're like, oh, I can't write. And, turned out they were a scribe or something, right? But that's really common. And the past life fears, yeah, sometimes there can be actually like a little bit of an echo that carries forward. I've seen some amazing things happen in sessions, but it can also be healed.
What are
So,
some of those amazing things you've seen in sessions?
as somebody that had an immense amount of back problems, had passed during a very violent fight in a very early period of history. And to my knowledge, I think they're still doing awesome. There had been a severe injury to their back. Yeah.
Is it true when it comes to, things like birthmarks or scars or, a little bit of tan skin or
hmm
discolored skin, that is where a past life type of injury or death happened?
There's actually a huge research going on about that. There's like Roger Wolger, Ian Stevenson. I mean, there's so many people that have been researching this over years, because children will often organically remember past lives. There's a famous case from northern BC where the child remembered who murdered them in their past life. Like, oh, awkward. But there's actually a huge amount of research out there about this because it does appear to be a thing. Um, yeah, I don't even know what
Now,
else to add to that.
well,
Yeah,
the Hindu religion is very, very uh, staunch on past lives and reincarnation. And there have been many cases where people have come back and claimed who murdered them, and those people
yeah,
have ended up becoming, how can we put it, becoming prisoners and
yeah.
being arrested for those crimes, whether it's murder or robbery or something along those lines. I mean, for a lot of us, especially here in North America and in Europe, we tend to poo-poo those ideas because it's not scientifically based, it's religious based.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess for somebody like you have to draw a fine line in between the two.
It's so interesting to me because I'll tell you something. There's something to the mouth, out of the mouth of babes, children up to usually about the age of 4 or 5 when they start getting really distracted. Children, including my own granddaughters, have come out with things spontaneously, um, and things with a detail that, especially if it was something that they weren't privy to or didn't understand, or they'd never been around, they'd never seen it on TV. There's something fascinating about all of this, actually. And so when it comes to so many times I hear people, they'll be like, oh, I can't visualize, I can't do this. And I'm like, you'd be surprised what you can do because you're not doing it through your brain, you're actually doing it through your heart because we're emotional beings. That also being said, too, I want people to be aware that because we're speaking about death at the end of, at the end of a life and in the context of a past life regression, you're not seeing it in you're experiencing it differently with a different level of detachment. It's almost like you're viewing it through the eyes of the soul. It's a different kind of experience.
There was a documentary about 10 years ago, it came out, It's
Mhm.
on YouTube if anybody wants to see it. Scared the daylights out of me. It was about children who were reincarnated, but they recalled their death on 9/11.
Wow, I haven't seen that one. But it sounds familiar.
And some of the cases that were used in that, and I know it's still a very sensitive topic, 21 years later. But I
Mhm.
mean, it's and for many of us who lived through that, watching those dark days, it was terrifying. It was scary.
Yeah.
We didn't know what was going to happen. We've never seen that here on North American soil before, and
Yeah.
to see these children actually talk about the pain of and blacking out when the towers collapsed and
Mhm.
then everything went black,
Yeah.
wondering all of a sudden where they were, because they didn't know where they were. In 1 second they were, they had legs and arms and a head and a body and a family, and the next thing
Mhm.
they're coming out the womb again, right?
Mhm. That's extraordinary. I never saw that. Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it true? Let me ask you this. Let me follow it up with this. Is it true that that the turnaround in reincarnation sometimes happens quickly if a person is killed tragically, like not on their timeline? So, for instance, none of those people on 9/11, I don't believe, knew that that was their timeline. It was a
Mhm.
tragic event. And, I'm just wondering, is it true about that quick turnaround for some?
I think it could be, but once again, I also think it's going to come down to the soul because there's also when people have died suddenly and tragically, um, throughout sessions over and over and over again, it's come out about where they're basically in a healing temple, that they're given a resting place. Do you know what I mean? Like this is not our lives here are not like a conveyor belt. There is something much more complex and deeper to all of this that goes far beyond our capacity to understand timelines. Like we're quantum beings. Um, so we measure time in a linear fashion, though I don't think the universe is actually very linear. I've heard experiences that overlap with a person's current timeline. Um, and people have, in the context of a session, come right back, or it certainly appears that way to us, right?
Right. Right. When people are going through and having their own regressions and learning about their previous lives, do they feel the emotion and the pain that they went through, or are they guarded against that?
They might feel emotion, but we're not talking like agony or something like that. There's going to be a level of detachment there. Pain, no. Um, these sessions are very energetic, is how I would probably put that. But as a practitioner, and because I've been on the journey that I've been on, you know, going back over these years, it's my intention that people are empowered with themselves. And so, something that might be like, because I hear about things, for instance, posted on Facebook that just sound outright exploitive to me. And it's just not how I approach things. I approach things with you're on a soul's journey and I want you to be the yost you. I want you to be empowered with who you are. I want it to be so that you don't have to run out to every psychic or even hypnosis practitioner. I want you to be empowered with you. And that's how I approach it. And that's pretty much how my sessions go. Um, and people have very varied experiences, but I've never had anybody come back and, oh my God, it's not like that. You are loved and you are guided through this. but not just by me. You're guided through by your highest self, your soul, your guides, you know? And
So
I trust
interesting.
it. Yeah, I trust it. I'm like, just do your job, Julie, right?
Jody would like to know, what level of HHT are you?
There's only 3 levels, and I'm second level. I'm actually certified in a number of modalities, and there's a different. You don't learn more with level 3. It's just more like you're receiving an audit, but there's a lot of other things, about how much time you have to put into the forum and everything, and this is actually how I make my living, and I'm busy. So yeah, I'm a level 2, and I've done around.
All right, let's move on to another question from Lara. During the regression, have people remembered abduction or other paranormal experiences?
That's so interesting. People have remembered paranormal experiences, but I wouldn't frame it as abduction.
Alien abduction.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
People have a multitude of experiences, but typically what's happened is when they're having other experiences and other dimensional experiences, it hasn't been scary.
When that comes up, talk me
Hmm.
through. So let's say, for instance, I'll give you an example. I'm an alien abductee. I'm very open
Hmm.
about that. Okay,
Yeah.
if I were to come to you and say I want to learn about this, you know, what do you go through? How do you change your game plan because I already know? How does it work?
That part is really almost easy for me because, like I said, I'm not trying to micro the session, and the session is usually organically guided from the divine. So, with somebody that wants to investigate that, um, anything that doesn't actually come out through a personal regression is going to come out through the highest self as well. There's actually, in the context of session, there's a number of ways to receive information. One of the
Right.
biggest, you know,
Go ahead.
one of the things, like I said, I'm really about people being empowered with themselves, and I'm also about removing the fear. That's a big deal to me. Fear can be disempowering, right?
Very much so. Very
Yeah.
much so. And I can understand that, and I can completely appreciate what you're saying about that. I mean, just listening to you, you sound a little uncomfortable going down the alien road.
Oh no, it's a very big road, and it's a bigger road than we've got time.
True.
That's and I think I'm just very comfortable in myself with us being far bigger than we imagine, going backwards and forwards. That's probably how I'd frame that.
Lara would like to know, do you have any stories about people recalling their alien abductions?
Uh, the people I meet aren't usually actually abducted. I would put this gently as these are people that have had experiences in other dimensions, planetary systems. That's how
Okay.
I'd frame that one. Sometimes I think we can perceive something one way and then discover it was different.
So take me through somebody who goes through different dimensions then.
Okay.
What would that be about?
Um, it's just really interesting because they experience a different level of consciousness, and they can experience different mobility, like bodily difference or no body. And it's to me, it's always intriguing because, like, I had my own experience, and so I'm always very intrigued with how people are experiencing it. It's not typically, a nuts and bolts kind of thing. But the other thing is too is the soul is present. The soul is always present. So they might be experiencing it differently, and they might be maybe having a different occupation, and they're around different beings, or maybe they're around beings and they don't see the other beings because they don't need to, right?
Very
I
true.
don't know if I don't know if I answered that right. The only reason I'm being careful, it's not hesitance about that, but I'm careful about my clients, right?
No,
So
I understand that, and I appreciate that. I guess for our sake in trying to learn what this is all about, uh, you know, sometimes the specifics of it all get a little bit, you know, we want
I
it.
don't,
We
yeah,
want
I
information.
think people, yeah, we do want information. I think it's actually probably my pleasure that people discover, if they're ready to, if that's what their soul is deemed as part of the journey, they learn they're much bigger than they actually thought. But what I love about that too is it also removes the fear.
Okay, let's move on to another question here. This one from Black Dragon, one of our favorite veterans who listens to this show. Thank you for your service, Black Dragon. Can past lives go beyond the time of humans?
Yes, yes.
Define
uh,
that a little bit for us.
People have had, and it could, in the context of a session, it's often very brief, but they experience a different kind of consciousness that is not human. People have experienced animal consciousness, being stone, being water, being a tree. Um, and it's good hard work on my part to figure out what's going on. Because they're often experiencing it from within that context, not just as a viewer looking down. A lot of people are actually in it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I, I don't care what you say. You got to tell me the tree story. Who the hell spent lifetime as a tree? Because that's going to be pretty damn boring.
Well, I'll tell you something. Well, and it's usually kind of like a brief context, but I always kind of feel like maybe the highest self did that to show them the eternalness of what's going on, kind of thing. The animal ones are actually a little easier to work with. Not super common because we're big beings. We've had lots of human lives too, but the animal ones are still fascinating nonetheless. The tree one, that was like, man, that was a lot. That was quite a while ago. Let me think. Um, I actually remember the water one better. The water one was actually probably one of the ones that stood out to me because it took me a little bit of doing to figure out what was going on. But I did.
Interesting. So I try and
Yeah.
kill the moth here. That's bugging the heck out of me right now. It's one of those jumpy ones. Oh, I missed it. I missed it. We got about 1 minute to go here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Julie Parker, registered hypnotherapist, is with us tonight on Spaced Out Radio. For you, how do you enjoy this? What do you enjoy about delving into these past aspects of people?
Oh my God, I love it so much. Well, the past life aspect is only half of it. The other half of the equation would definitely be your highest self and then your soul and who you are. It's my passion because when people are finished the session and they're like, "Oh my God, I feel lighter," and they've experienced the energy or the lightness or the depth of who they are. We are very varied. We've had very varied lives. You could be a cozy little housewife in this lifetime, but maybe you were an Inuit hunter in the last one or something. People are amazing, and it's exciting. It is. It's exciting.
Awesome. Julie Parker's with us for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. We're having a great time talking regression therapy, past lives. We continue with Julie when we return on the mighty SOR. Stay tuned. All right, we are clear.
I have so many little tidbits and stories I could share, and I'm like, why am I not sharing them? I'm careful though, like I said, because people are precious to me, so I don't want to sit. But there's little, small things I could share.
Yeah, if you want to share some when we come back, that would be wonderful. Good morning, little Johnny Davies. How's it over in the UK this morning? Raining as per usual, I shall assume.
Is he having haggis for breakfast?
I bet you he does eat haggis for breakfast.
I'd totally eat haggis for breakfast every day, man. That's good stuff.
That is not good stuff. It's grotesque.
I was gonna say, I heard
You eat
haggis.
Nanaimo bars, Dave.
I do eat Nanaimo bars because they're good.
They are delicious.
I don't understand, Dirty Filth, how you do not like Nanaimo bars.
It's because I'm sweet enough, Dave.
Holy cow, it's actually sunny over in the United Kingdom this morning. Mark that on the calendar. They have sun in the UK this morning. First time in 896 days. Vegemite is terrible, Brazelhoff. It's terrible. I've tried it. Dirty Filth, I'm going to get you one of those cans of that stinky fish from Norway. I want to see you.
You know
I'm going to.
If you do it, Dave, I'll scoff it down, man.
I want to be there when you do it. We may have to do that in Vegas.
Jesus. Yeah. Oh, well. Okay.
Or I'll just send you one and you got to videotape it, or we'll do it live on the YouTube channel.
I'm just going to draw cartoons from now on.
Yeah. Yeah, I got you on that one. Hey, it's raining in London, according to Commonwealth Andrew. Of course it's raining in London. So every McDonald's Happy Meal in London comes with your free umbrella for kids. Mm-hmm. I'm snarky today. Hello there, gorgeous Troy SR71. What's happening? Jonathan Davies, I'm going to give you a wrench. You probably don't want one, but I'm going to give you one anyways. You're here enough. There you go. There you go. Any update on San Diego? Yes, San Diego. Nobody really knows what it means, according to Ron Burgundy. No, it's not St. Diego.
It's
Dirty
raining,
Filth's got-
Dave, and I can't have my window open. I'm upset about that.
We had an awesome thunderstorm come through here earlier today.
I'd love to see a thunderstorm at the top of the mountains. Never seen that before.
Best thunderstorm I ever saw was in July of 1987 when I was on a golf course in Edmonton.
Oh
the day of
my
the big
God.
Yeah,
Wow.
picking up hailstones the size of baseballs.
Yeah.
All
Wow.
right. All right, we got about 30 seconds left. Thank you to Sally and Lala for the amazing super chats. The super chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on the each and every night. We really do appreciate it. So thank you so much. Do a little shopping at our store on our website, spacedoutradio.com. Go check out our swag. We got some cool stuff there. So check that on out as well. And here we go with the second half of the show coming up in like 5 seconds. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight. For the final time, we say hi to Julie Parker. She is a hypnotherapist out of the beautiful province of Alberta, and its capital of Edmonton. She's a good Edmonton Oilers fan, which we greatly appreciate around here. Yes, we do. But nonetheless, what's that, Julie?
I said Oilers who?
Stop that. Stop that immediately. Yeah, I was loving you up until that point. Loving you up until.
Okay, we can't be friends anymore.
I'm sorry. I know
No,
somebody that's a pro. He was a former pro hockey player, and I used to say, "Who's playing, the Grizzly or the Blue Jays?" Right?
Oh my gosh!
I'm happy for the home team. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. This interview is just crushed right now.
Shut it down.
Unbelievable. Anyways, let's go to a question from Tony in the UK, who has a grand total of 27 umbrellas in his closet right by his front door. What is the normal amount of past lives? What is the most past lives you've come across?
Okay, so that question's an interesting one to answer because that would be, are you asking about past lives here? We're big beings and we've experienced, it's definitely evident that we've experienced life in other dimensions. And so sometimes that is innumerable, but then sometimes people are actually given a number. It'll be like 27 or 8 or something like that. That's actually a common question that people ask. Yeah.
Then once again, I will rephrase my question. It is how many, like if you've been around for 27, 28 lives, how far back does that span? Does that span back to the time the earth stood still? Does it go right until the Atlantis?
I was actually just pulling a number out of the air. So I've actually heard numbers that go into the thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it does definitely go back into Atlantis because I have heard, lives experienced as other dimensional beings that could include water beings, fairies. People have a number of experiences, and it's really interesting because the number one argument will be, oh, that's just a mind making it up, but the people that are going through the regression are experiencing what that body is, what it feels like. It's a deeper kind of experience, and so we're big beings, and yeah, people have experienced lives as animals. I don't see that one as much anymore. It's kind of, yeah,
Very
whatever that
interesting.
person's ready for. Yeah.
All right, let's get to another question here. This one comes from Dennis. Would you say that people diagnosed with multiple personality disorders are tied to past lives?
That's really interesting. That's a really interesting question. You know, I think the only fair answer I can give, because I actually worked in a nonprofit for a number of years where people did have a lot of different like challenges. And I don't know. I've had my own speculations on that, but it's absolutely not, I don't know if there's anybody doing research on that or not. Um, Yeah, I wish I could give you a fair answer on that, but we are so much bigger than we remember. And there's no accidents in this universe. There's no accidents and no coincidences. And while we may not understand a particular journey, that journey is as divine as any other.
All right, let us continue with audience questions here. Dirty Filth wants to know, where does the soul begin, if possible?
Source. Sorry, that was my
Okay.
answer. Source. What is source?
So, but go ahead. I'll let you answer that, and then I'll ask you a question.
I think it comes back to that experience at the very beginning before I started into this work. We are here in our bodies, which essentially is almost like we're in costumes, if you want to put it that way. Or I heard somebody say a smart overcoat. I love that. But when we're in another space, your frequency, your light. Even if I come back to what you were talking about earlier, Dave, at the beginning of the discussion, when you talked about how isolated you were and how, people kind of disappeared from your life. And so when we go through these changes, because we're frequency and we're all a dance of frequency and that's constantly changing, when you're going through changes in your life, it does feel like some people are leaving your life, but I'll tell you what, people that are in that frequency are also going to come in, right? So,
That's good advice. Very good
yeah.
advice. So, the soul, source, heaven, God, whatever you want to call it, Allah, Buddha, Brahma,
Mhm.
Vishnu, there's been approximately, as far as we can count, 10 billion people that have lived on this planet and that have died, I should say, on this planet.
Mhm.
And we're at 7.8 billion right now. If souls have been dogs, and cats, and fish, and trees, and fairies, and rocks, and gnomes, and Sasquatch, and aliens,
Mhm.
any idea how many souls are really out there? Do we even know? Is it infinite?
I do kind of feel like it's infinite because I'm also very much interested in the quantums. I'm interested in the quantum sciences. I'm not educated in the quantum sciences, but I spend a lot of time there as well, just trying to understand it all because we really are, we are perception and we are intention, and this universe is nothing like what we think it is. But we're also
Learning.
powerful beings, right? We're far more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. I've seen people's lives change just like that, and they did it themselves, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right, let's get back to some audience questions here. And this one comes from Pam. Do you believe in parallel worlds and we can have a twin soul in those planets at the same time?
Um, I do. That's actually one of the areas in the quantum sciences that I'm interested in because through sessions, I have seen something that would suggest that's very much possible. That there might be parallel worlds or timelines. That's actually like a big, if I'm not doing sessions, I'm a bit of a nerd. um, having a twin soul, that is so interesting to me because I don't think anything's off the table. I really don't. Dolores Cannon herself would say that, like, every time you make a decision, that decision that you didn't take, runs off till it ceases to exist, kind of thing. And I've seen things in my own life and really profound synchronicities and everything that suggest we're a lot bigger than what we give ourselves credit for. So I do think, yeah, I do believe there's a real possibility about parallel worlds, parallel timelines.
Oh,
Um,
that's shit.
yeah.
Well, well, thanks for belching there, dirty filth. Appreciate that. Don't worry, I hit your mute button there. Don't worry about that. We'll just edit that part out. Why not?
That's not even a swear word, Dave. You have to leave that in there. That's not a swear word. I apologize, but that's not a swear word, so you have to leave that in there. Organic, Dave.
Yeah.
It's organic.
Organic.
Way to make us sound pro there, buddy. Way to make us sound
Well, that's ginger ale for you.
I'm like, who the hell is doing that? Your microphone's always on mute.
Did you hear
Oh my.
me rambling to myself previously then?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
No,
we
I
got a new
apologize.
T-shirt. We got a new T-shirt going up at spacedoutradio.com. Free the belch. Free the belch. All right. Cedric would like to know, is past lives a part of the higher self?
You know how I like to explain it to people? This beingness of you right now, if you could imagine the soul being a diamond, then this beingness of you right now is one facet of that diamond. So that's probably how I'd answer that. It's all,
All right.
Yeah.
It's all one.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Heather would like to know, how soon do we choose to incarnate after death on average?
That's really interesting because, there's been, for all intents and purposes, it looks like some people choose to go back right away. And surprisingly, you hear a lot of people joke, "Oh, I'm not coming back here." And they're like, "I can't wait to go back." And then some people choose to rest, maybe rest with family and friends. And sometimes that can be family and friends from other time periods that you weren't actually sharing this life with. So it's pretty neat. That's something actually that's something I'd actually like to mention because so many times people are met by a guide or a loved one, but over and over I hear about this sensation of other beings behind that loved one, like this massive group, and it's often, souls is just you don't remember them because you were in this incarnation having your experiences.
Okay. Amy would like to know, do we get punished and rewarded on and off over time? And what is the end game?
I love that. And I love how you asked it. Because I like to say, yeah, well, St. Peter's not sitting there with a, clipboard and there's an elevator shaft and poof, No, it's so different than that. And the one thing I never come across ever is a punishment. It's more like your soul, your higher self. It's like, okay, I wanted to do that different. I wanted to experience that different. It's a different kind of wisdom. And wisdom is actually the word I would use for that because how you're seeing things in another frequency, another dimension is not how you would see it here. Um, we're meant to experience polarity here. I know that sounds impossible to believe, but that is part of our process and our experience and our evolution here. But that's not actually what I come across people go before a council and the life between life. They're in healing temples. It's amazing. But the number one thing I encounter over and over again is there's so much love. So much love. And people have experienced being in the womb. Yeah, nothing's off the table in this work.
Well, you know what? It's very interesting because a lot of ET contactees and intuitives claim that they can recall going back as far as being born or in the womb. I mean, that's just incredible.
Yeah,
That's just incredible.
yeah. I think it's if they're having those kind of experiences, they've already grown into a different kind of awareness that probably would not be casual. They've just had different experiences, right?
No kidding. No kidding. We got about 8 minutes to go here. Let's get to another question from our audience. So let's go over to the United Kingdom. Andrew is asking, do you need a PhD to have a practice like this?
No, I don't consider it a practice, actually. I'm certified, actually, in several clinical hypnotherapies, past life regression. Marissa Peer, who's from the UK, is actually one of the modalities that I've studied. You don't have to have a PhD. I think what you have to have is compassion, the willingness, and wanting to assist. Dolores Cannon's program, which is open to anybody, level 1, level 2, and so on. It's very achievable.
All right, let's go to Troy here. Do you think guardian angels could be our souls from our past or from our future lives?
That's real. That's a really interesting question, because there seems to be a bit of a distinction between spirit guides and guardian angels, and angels seem to have a very different presence, and much more about an energetic. Where guides show up in a number of ways. Guides show up looking that, like I said, they can show up looking like animals, but traditionally they tend to show up as light in different formations. Yes, they've shown up looking like ETs. They show up looking like humans, and sometimes they're loved ones. And so, I remember one particular person where the guide that showed up was actually a child, and she was completely disarmed by this. And the child turned out to be a child from a past life that she went on to experience later in the session. And so there's things that take place during the session. There seem to be like themes and things, but I'll tell you something. You ask people, and it's like, they'll be like, "Oh my God, did I make this up?" And I'm like, "Did you?" And they're like, "No." Right? Because there's nuances and details and things that you just couldn't have come up with, right?
I guess so. I
Yeah.
guess so. How does one tell if they are in touch with their guides?
Oh, okay. Can I show something really quick? Do we have enough time?
Sure.
Okay. Your guides, first of all, you're going to feel things through the heart. And, guides have so many different ways of getting through to you. But if you see a synchronicity and you're like, is that a synchronicity? Just know it is. Okay. But something that I show people really quick just to get in touch with your highest self, because your highest self is not like, we're not opening a portal and something's coming down. This is you. It's actually inside of you. It's just life is busy and noisy. So something I show people, if you want to check in, whether it's your guide, your highest self, how, wherever you want higher information, you're going to put your hands to your heart. It's like heart-brain coherence. There's actually 40,000 neurons in your heart, actual scientific fact. So you're going to put your hands to your heart, and then you're going to take a really long, deep breath in and a very long exhale. Well, when you're doing that, and I'm talking not a I'm talking take in that deep breath and you take it down and fill the bottom of your lungs. Just take that breath until you can't take it in anymore. And then let it out slow, steadily. Empty your lungs out completely. And in that moment, the mind will actually just be still for a second and ask yourself the question. For instance, if you're feeling triggered, or is this, whatever, is this beneficial for me? Whatever that question is. And you're keeping your hands on your heart when you're doing it. Okay. So you've taken that deep breath in, deep breath out. You ask yourself the question, and people will feel, sense. You might even hear what feels like a tiny voice. You might get a word, and it's not going to be a complex speech or something. It's going to be a very basic answer. It's going to be hard and fast. Oftentimes, people are getting the answer before they finished answering, asking the question. Sorry.
Well, that's
Trying to speak
awesome.
fast.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and it works. I show that to every client. I don't want anybody to ever be in a position where they feel like they've got to run off to someone else to get their own answers. I'm excited with everybody I meet, but I encourage them to share this. It works. Heartbrain coherence. Do it.
How do we know what our guides look like, who they are, what they are? If we see them in a dream state or a meditative state, how do we know we're supposed to approach them, talk to them?
Oh, your guides. Your guides love you. They're your guides. They're like, and they've got a sense of humor sometimes, right? Like I had somebody doing a visualization right at the beginning of the session, and all of a sudden this, like, they were in a busy street corner, and basically this a sports car came screaming up, and it's cute because the client's like, what? Because they're just in a fun warm-up visualization. And it was the guy, come on, get in, we got somewhere to go. Like nothing is off the table. They had a really great session too. You see your guides in your dreams, talk to your guides. They want you to see them.
I haven't seen my guides in a while. One I've only ever seen twice, and another one only comes around when she needs to tune me up.
They wait. If you are having a hard time seeing them per se, you will also sometimes get sensations. People have spoken a lot about tingles, getting a tingly sensation, or they feel like a sensation on their back or something like that. Synchronicities, big time. That's a big one. Guides love synchronicities. It's like the guide said in that session about the color red, and dropped that thing about the ladybug into my mind, and I spoke it, and the client was like, what? Where'd you get a ladybug? I don't know.
I hear you there. We have 90 seconds left with you tonight, Julie, and I want to say you've been a lot of fun, and thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio. Do us a favor, tell everybody where they can get a hold of you and maybe get a regression with you.
Awesome. All right. Well, my website is julieparkerqhht.com. So qhht.com. And for anybody interested in learning more about QHHT and the Academy, like studying that perhaps, you can go to dolorescannon.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, you're going to find me under Wanderer and Wonderer. There, that's fun. And you can find me on Facebook under Edmonton Past Life Regression and QHHT.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. And the main message here is don't worry about it. You're coming back anyways. You don't have a choice.
No, it's about having fun. Have fun. Live your life.
Learn to party. Don't be a miser. Don't be a miser. Just live. Live and let die, as Guns N' Roses used to sing. Absolutely. Still do sing, actually. Great song. Great song. Coming up next, when we kick off hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio, we're going to head to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller is going to join us for another spooky story. Then, Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio will be here for the Cryptid Report. And finally, Shirky Poo's news. We're going to go in depth. What happened in San Diego last night with all of those Unidentified aerial phenomena. Is it real or is it Flare X? Spaced Out Radio continues with hour number 3 next. Guns N' Roses did a better version, Michael Fontaine. Just saying. No argument there. Julie, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
for
Julie.
having me. Thank you so much. It was so great to meet another Edmontonian, too. That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, I'll give you a show in the future, and maybe I'll come visit you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm easy to find.
Well, he'll bring a roll of Kubasov for you from
Well, and
Stanici's.
I want one of those Woo Train. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm always saying that. I'm like, you got a mug that says Woo Train?
They are on our website as we speak. Go to spacedoutradio.com, go to shop, and they're right there for you. There's even
Awesome.
Woo Train women's underwear, just so you know.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
I appreciate it. I had so much fun. That's it's a huge topic. I wrote all this stuff and I didn't even talk about most of it.
Well, that means you got to come back again. We had a lot of fun. Julie, I'm going to let you go because we got to get ready for hour 3. Dirty Filth has to take over some cartoonage. But thank you for joining us tonight. Very much appreciate it.
Right on. Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you,
Take
Julie.
Care. All right. Judy Parker, everyone. Julie Parker, pardon me. Great person. Great personality. Love her. Filth, I'll be right back. You're on the mic.
I am on the mic, and it's raining, but the bonus is, well, Blob's crying, but the bonus part is it's not soaking into my art studio, so I can have the window open and smell the nice rainy air. That's Blob whining in the background if you can hear it. So nonetheless, hold on here. Oh, I forgot I can't turn on my pumping beats while I'm doing all this stuff. Don't worry. One of these days I'll upgrade to a fancy headset so I can not have to have these terrible headphones. So anyways, this is a cartoon memorializing, I don't know. Depends on what the Metro version is. Basically, it's what the aliens did yesterday. It's like we got Carl, and he's there, and he's like, the USA and Brazil have been talking about us again. And his higher-ups, they're like, Carl, have some Sasquatch drop some flares near San Diego. Make them squirm a little. Then we got Sasquatch with his box of flares. This is totally going in Volume 2. Volume 2 of my cartoons. Since Dave's not here, I'm going to plug my cartoons. Go to Amazon, type in Cryptid Cartoons. Buy my book. Support my crippling pizza addiction. It doesn't matter if you buy my book or nobody buys my book. All I wanted to do is have published stuff, and I bought my own book. Imagine that, eh? A guy buys his own book. Unbelievable. Totally believable in my standard of the universe, but nonetheless. Okay. Up next. Oops. Now Blob's whining. Yeah. Hello, Blob. Yep. Darken that up a little bit. It's not quite to my satisfaction. Hello, Blob. Yeah, Blob's doing her thing. Struggling. Okay, nonetheless, here we go. It's almost done. Figure it out, Spanky. right, just gonna wait for the last little bit to dry here. Get a secret technique for that. Also, easiest way to do artwork with watercolors is you can just kind of draw it out like that, and then it helps you out with some of the techniques. Perfect. It's exactly what I'm looking for. Come on, Blob. Yep. There comes the Blob, the supervisor. All right. Now on to the inking. Oh boy, Dave, he's like 17 minutes late by now. Oh, we don't need the number 8 for that guy. Get everything right here. Isn't that right, Blob? Yes. Ramble to the cats because they show up here and do that cat thing. Ooh, the inking. Bloody hell. Apparently I'm bleeding all over the place.
All right. Let's do this thing, Dirty Filth.
Let's do this, Dave. Apparently I'm bleeding all over the place, so probably the cats.
Probably the cats. It's always the
Anyway,
cats.
All right, I'll go to mute here. And
All right. Thank you tonight to Lala and Sally for the super chats. Thank you to everybody who's given us a thumbs up. We're 26 away from 100. 26 away. Let's try and get there. And if you're new and hit that subscribe button, we really appreciate it. Hi, Nick Hambrick. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for listening on in. Here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate you tuning us on in for a nighttime of woo. That's what we do right here on the big show. Want to remind everybody and say thank you to everyone who's tuned on in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Geophyte. Geophyte is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Let's head over to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller takes us on another journey with a spooky story tonight.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. Hunting. It seems like fun to some people. I used to feel that way myself. It was never for food, but just sport. I know this sounds cliched, but I had an experience where the hunter became the hunted. In 2009, I decided to do what I often do. That meant taking a break and going somewhere to relax. When I heard that my friends had planned a hunting expedition, I immediately got on board. Since there were two of my friends going on that same trip, I figured it would be fun. We ended up going with a veteran hunter named Buck Adams. And yes, that was his real name. He told us stories about previous hunting trips where he bagged whatever he was after. Deer, bear, ruffed grouse, pheasant. He had gotten them all. He told us we were going to a secret hunting spot in western Pennsylvania, to a place where we would find some real trophies. He once got a 17-point buck there. Having a chance to grab something of that magnitude made me even more eager. When we arrived at that spot, we were split into groups of 4, since there was 13 of us. Buck had his own tent. The other 4 were shared by 3 people each. The first night we were there, he said, "Go ahead and explore before you turn in. Just watch out for the werewolf." Since I didn't know how to react, I laughed nervously. A guy with us named Mark told us that a creature called the Squonk was more believable than that. Buck's face was stone cold. "I'm not kidding," he said with venom in his voice. When I asked Mark if he was really that confident that there were no werewolves, he gave me an exact reply I was expecting. He just wants to scare us. New kids, old stories, that's the way it works. I was about to reply when we all heard a snap sound. Not knowing what it was, and not wanting to know, we all dove inside a tent. I was with Mark, Christopher, and one of my friends, Grant. Christopher whispered, "That's 4 people. One of you needs to find a different tent." I was about to punch him when I heard a weird guttural growl. The 4 of us did rock, paper, scissors to see who would go look. Grant was the first one to lose, so he peeked outside. He brought his head back inside within 1 second. His eyes were wide and he seemed to be shocked. "What's wrong?" I asked. He pointed outside. I looked and saw a terrifying sight. There was a monster there, about 8 feet tall, silver hair or fur, glowing yellow eyes, and a muscular build. I was about to yell when Mark grabbed me from behind, dragged me inside the tent, and quietly zipped the flap. "Okay," he whispered. Buck wasn't trying to scare us. He was serious. We all huddled together and heard the creature stomping towards our tent. I let out a sigh of fear. Chris dug his fingers into my arm. Grant started saying Hail Marys, and Mark was letting out squeaks of fear. After 10 minutes, we all heard a rifle shot. The thing howled like a wolf and ran on 2 legs back into the woods. Buck unzipped our flap and asked if we were okay. We confirmed that we were, but Buck still suggested we go to a different area of the state. So we did that very next morning. Was what we saw a werewolf? I can't be positive. But it wasn't like a wolf I've ever seen. For one thing, they can't stand on 2 legs, and they definitely aren't 8 feet tall. And they don't growl or howl in a way that thing did. I decided just to stop camping altogether after that. Think about it. If there's a werewolf out there, what else could be lurking in the woods?
Yes, it's real simple. You got a werewolf in that area, you don't go camping in a tent. No. This is why Dave doesn't tent. Okay? Because you never know. You never know when a bear, a man-eating mountain lion, a werewolf, a dogman, a Sasquatch is going to come and get you. You just don't do that. Got to be smart. That's why we shouldn't enter the ocean. Okay, you've heard me gripe about that over time, but you got to be smart, people. If you are going into the forest, at least bring a motorhome or travel trailer or something that gives you some sort of protection. All right, it's that time once again. Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio is back. His hair is on par, looking freshly shampooed and conditioned as we bring him in for the Cryptid Report. How you doing there, Super Duke?
Hey, old Swampy there. He got Dogman. He had Dogman issue. I'm doing pretty good. I'm all beat up from being out in the woods for 4 days in the Gemstone Mountain Range last week, which is why I wasn't here on Thursday. And I had to have my helpful friend, Robin McRae, pinch hit and jump in here for me. And you took advantage of the opportunity to get all your information asked. I listened to it later. This is a peculiarity of where we were at. For the first time ever, we were in a research area where we could actually get 1 bar. So you could actually make a call. Sometimes they drop, but you could make a call. So eventually we got it figured out where we could get on YouTube. So we were playing YouTube music through our big speaker to entertain the Sasquatch in the woods. And of course, we put on your Thursday show and listened to you talk to Robin. And that was a fun show. Yeah. So she done good.
Oh, she's awesome. I could just spend hours talking to her. hours. She's
Yepper. She's recently been over there in Michigan filming with the documentary crew, being out in the woods with them and stuff, and getting thermal footage and stuff. So that'll be something interesting to look forward to coming up here.
Well, let's focus on you here before you get into story time with us. What happened up on your quest to find Sasquatch?
Oh, they were there. They're always up there. The problem is with this place now, it's getting to be more and more well known. And there's more and more people that are going to the nearby, well upkept, touristy ghost town of Garnett. And along the way, they see this little sign that says Coloma, and they go, huh, I wonder what that is. Well, then they drive in. And then the Sasquatch that are there get upset because some idiot's driving in. And they don't know them. So they go hide for another hour. Well, if they're driving in all hours of the day and night, the Sasquatch ain't going to be making very much activity going on because they're like, who are these clowns coming in here? And it got actually really bad. Sunday when we were leaving, we saw the nearest neighbor who lives about 1.5 miles away, came driving up there. And I was already packing up my tent. Michael saw him and waved to him. And he waved back. He's already met us a bunch of times, so he knows what we're up there for. And he just drove right on past. And behind him, he had a forestry truck. And behind the forestry truck was the sheriff's SUV. So we're going, okay, what the hell is going on now? And they're not paying any attention to us. They go cruising down to the other side of the ghost town. Well, apparently it probably had something to do with the fact that we heard somebody fire a gunshot over there about a half an hour earlier. So that could be what they're up there for. We don't know. But they went to piling past us before we finished packing up and went out again. And on the way out, the sheriff's SUV was sitting down on the far side of town on a campground that's just beyond where the edge of the town is. And he wasn't even in it. He was out walking around the woods or something nearby. So we're like completely confused about what was going on there. But I had Robin ask the Sasquatch, and yeah, they were extremely upset about idiot with gun. Had a lot to do with him not being near us. We had one that got about 30 feet away from our pavilion tent, maybe even closer than that, at about 2:00 in the morning. Saturday night. And then the night before when we were there, I was the last one that went in the tent, and it's within 2 minutes of zipping up my tent. Literally, I hadn't even really gotten into my bedroll. I'm still like pulling off shoes and stuff. Something goes clomp, 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 clomp right past the tent. And I'm like, hey. And then I don't hear anything. So again, the next day when I got on the phone with Robin, I went, yeah, it didn't seem like there was much activity here last night. And she said, well, one of them said they walked right through camp next to your tent. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, apparently that's what that was. But yeah, there was too much human activity up there. So we found one 18-inch track on an old fire access trail that we had never even known was there before. We discovered that and walked up it. At the very top, it was the top of the mountain. There was a big clear cut where, it looked like an area that had been carpet bombed. Everything was flattened, but it did give a nice view of the valley 9 miles below. So I took advantage of getting some video of that. Now, Mike just sent over the pictures today that he took while the two of us were there. He was walking around taking snapshots, and all of his other pictures are nice and clear and in focus. And every snapshot he took in that clearing, keeping in mind it's in the afternoon out in the sun, is blurry and distorted looking.
Wow.
That's very strange. And this is the same place where we got that picture that I was talking about. I think it was last time I was on, where we had that distortion, that whatever it was, bending the light around it. And that's one of the reasons we were up there. We were trying to find that exact spot, take a comparison picture. Sunny had gotten 2 weird pictures when I was up there with her. One was that thing bending the light around it, and the other one was a rock that looked like a split screen. It looked like it was looking at the top of the rock on one side and the bottom of the rock on the other side. This is just a picture, so that shouldn't happen either. So we had both of them loaded on Mike's camera, and I knew pretty much exactly where it was taken. So we walked right to that spot, and I never figured we would be able to find the second one of the weird split screen looking thing, and that was the first thing we found. And and it doesn't look anything like that picture. It's really strange, and you guys get to see what this actually looks like, and then compared to the picture that she got of it, it's just mind-boggling because there's no way to get a picture like that. And what blew me away even more is how perceptive Mike is, because Mike's looking at her picture and he goes, oh, here it is right here. And I go, how do you know it's that? And he goes, See the little pine needle that's clinging to the moss on the side of the rock in this picture from 3 years ago? And he points to it. There it is right there. And I'm like, oh my God. So that's how perceptive Mike is. Keep this in mind now, because after that, we spent the next hour walking around this teeny little hillside area where there should have been this other rock that you got the picture of something bending the light around. We could not find it. We went to every little rock outcrop and pile in that area, walked all the way around 360 degrees compared to that picture. Nothing looked anything like it. So we're going to try again, but that just baffles me because I almost could retrace step for step where I went to get there. I've done it a bunch of times before. And it's like, well, where'd the rock pile go?
Wow.
I mean, there's literally no way to miss it. We went in circles around this area of the hillside for an hour, and there's only a certain number of rock piles there. And we're, like running past them again to find the new ones over here, yada, yada. We're going around them at every angle. Nothing looks like that picture that she took. So we're just having hell of a time with that one. We figure the distortion on it is distorting so much of the center of the picture. We're going to have to match the very outside edge of one side or the other to part of one of those rock piles. But the problem is on the one side where you can see where there's the woods in the background and everything, there is no rock pile there where there is the woods on that side, no matter what angle you're standing on it. And that's what we were using to try and match it up. Like, even if the rock pile looks different, the woods on this side is going to stay the same because it wasn't distorted in the picture. And yet we can't find that either. So this is very disturbing, Dave. It's very, very disturbing.
My goodness. What was the energy like up there?
Oh, it wasn't bad. I've been up there before. It was a lot more foreboding when they were clearly unhappy we were there. And we've been up there enough times now. They know me for sure. And they know Mike. Ashton, they probably didn't know that he was with us until he showed up, and they're like, oh, this guy's been here before. But yeah, it was fairly friendly. They were, they're just a really shy group there. And we're not up there every month like we are in the other research areas. So they only get to see us like maybe once a year. So, even though we've been going there like 6-7 years, that's still only 6 or 7 times. And one of the, most amazing Bigfoot coups we ever pulled off was bringing Kevin Lang up there and having Glag actually show up. And so they're aware of Glag and his family because they were there that one time. So, they know that they can basically trust me, but they don't have much trust for any of the other humans that are up there. And I can see why. There's a lot of really crazy people that just drive through there randomly. And, I got my hunting rifle. Let's sight it in. Just stupid,
Little would they know that they're actually shooting at.
Yeah, well, little do they know who they're whizzing off by making loud noises in their area. I think at this point I should relate one of the adventures that happened. Actually, it was when we were up there with Kevin, and there's the main area of town, and adjacent to this area of town, there's this little spooky valley, and it's right next to town. There's woods that has ancient tree structures in it. And right beyond the edge of that woods, there's this little spooky valley. And if you go up the ridge from the spooky valley, there's a single hunting shack from like the 1970s or 80s up there. So it's like 50, 60 years older than the town itself. Somebody made a hunting shack up there, which is also mysteriously deserted. And when you had Paranormal Portal research team up there with all their ghost gadgets, they were in that place 2 years in a row, and it was just nuts up there. So anyway, we keep away from the spooky valley. And when we were up there, we decided to go up to the spooky shack right before dark because we don't want to be up there after dark. We'll be in the ghost town after dark, but we don't want to be up there after dark. And Travis is up there with Mike, and he's looking down the spooky valley, and some people had come in with a Volkswagen van, and they were camping there. And for some weird reason, they weren't coming into town saying hi to us or anything. We had a sizable group there, but whatever. They want to be hermits. And Travis is looking down the hillside next to the spooky house, and there's woods there, and he can see the little valley is lit up from the camper. This is maybe 150, 200 feet away from him. There's something in the woods next to the camper that keeps popping up and ducking down, and popping up and ducking down. And he's watching this about 6, 7 times every few seconds. It's doing this. And he turns around and he goes, "Hey, Mike, are you seeing this?" Well, Mike isn't there. Mike already left. Now Travis is getting pretty spooked. So he decides to beat feet while he can still find the path to get back to downtown. And he tells us all about this. So about 4 o'clock in the morning, we hear the van engine rev up. People are yelling. They're spitting gravel. And they're bombing out of there as fast as they possibly can. And this road is really treacherous and dangerous. Will take out the bottom of your car. So if you had any sense, you'd be creeping out, not blasting out of there at light speed. And we don't think they were like in a big hurry to get for the Denny's breakfast in town or something. Something probably scared them out of there. And it was probably what was popping up and down watching them earlier in the night. And judging by the size of what Travis said it was probably one of Glag's 2 kids. He had both of them with him, and they're around 10 feet tall. So one of them was probably over there curious, who are these Goombas? They're not with Kevin and his buddies. We're going to scare them away.
Just love how you put that. You're such the storyteller. You really are. Get rid of the Goombas in the forest.
Yeah, who are these Goombas? They're not hanging around with Kevin and his buddies. They shouldn't be here. Chase them away.
Driving around in the VW van, which not made for 4x4ing or logging roads.
Well, my God, it's like if you're going in there during the day with something like that, you can make it in, but you're creeping in carefully. And they're going out in the dark, blasting gravel out as fast as they can go. Engines roaring, people screaming, and they're going like, well, I don't think they're going for pancakes. And like it woke up everybody over actually in downtown Coloma, which is where we were camping. We all woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning going, what the hell is going on over there? So, yeah, that was a fun time.
That's just amazing. Absolutely. I can just picture this. I'm picturing this in my mind right now.
Yeah, it was, well, we're kind of wondering why they're even over there. And, you know, if you're going to camp in a ghost town, why don't you come camp with all the other people that are over there clearly laughing and having fun and stuff? Why are you just camping in this little creepy valley off to the side of it? You know, that was kind of suspicious to start with. So,
yeah, now we're going to have to create a Goombas t-shirt here.
You know, we say, get off my lawn. Sasquatch says, get out of my woods, you Goombas.
We got 2 minutes to go before we go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio here for the Cryptid Report. On your hunt there, I know you don't like calling it a hunt, on your research area there, did you find any good evidence?
Well, like I said, we got one nice 18-inch track. There was several partials from a young adult that traversed across at a right angle across a logging trail. And when he stepped in the middle of it, he left a pretty good print. But the ones on each side were partials, and the one in the middle didn't leave toe impressions on it. So it wasn't that great. It was like, it could be a human too, you know, but there was nothing to indicate that it was wearing a shoe. The other one, he was apparently going uphill and he stepped onto the logging trail for part of it. And then he kept going straight. The logging trail turned, so he only left one track. And that was about an 18-inch track. And it had probably been there shortly before the last rainstorm, because you can tell it was pretty well washed out, but his weight was so freaking heavy, it still left a nice indentation in the old fire access road. So we got the video of that. And then we found what we think was a track line of little person tracks, 3 inches long, 4 of them in a row.
Really?
And you'll get to see that. All of this stuff will be on this Sunday's video, which I'll be putting together. It'll be the review of Coloma, because believe it or not, I've got to go out again. I've got to be out for 2 days and 1 night this weekend in the Sapphire Mountains at my regular research area. So I'm Mr. Go visit the Sasquatch here for a while.
Hey, when it's that time of the year, you have to go. You got to take advantage of it. You can relax all winter.
Well, that's it, Dave. I mean, realistically, a lot of the places we go to are in the high mountains, and they close the passes. So you've only got during the summer to go up there. And even this time of the year, if it's 100 degrees down in the valley, up there at night, it's still 20. So it's not the most comfortable for camping, right?
I hear you. Duke, we'll get you to hold on right now, because we do have to go to our final break of the night here on Spaced Out Radio. Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio is here with the Cryptid Report, talking about his latest juncture into the mountains of Montana, looking for Sasquatch. Spaced Out Radio continues with more Duke and Shirky Poo's news when we return. Stay tuned. Super Duke.
Hey, this one this coming weekend is going to be a really fun day. We get to scare newbie, somebody that's not entirely sure Bigfoot even exists. And I'm bringing somebody with me that's never been up here with me before. She's from the Kiowa tribe down in Oklahoma. And she's seen them before at their powwows. They'll come and hang out in the wood line, and they'll start chanting along with the natives. So she's 100% knows for a fact they're real. So she wants to go visit the ones up here, and her friend that she's bringing with is like, I'm not sure Bigfoot's real. And we're like, okay, bring the adult diapers and do not bring the gun.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because you will crap your pets, and we don't want you to shoot at them. We'll get killed.
Right? Don't eat any of that, Super Duke.
Nope. Pooping your diapers, not a good thing anyway. Well, I'm going to go have part of a cigarette here. I got a cool thing for us to listen to when I get back from the amazing Lauren Coleman, Mr. Cryptozoology.
Sure. Absolutely. Works for us, man. You go. How you doing there, Dirty Filth? Let's take a peek at you here. Strange occurrence.
I jiggled the camera and I can't fix it, so I'm leaving it like it is now. And I have to write the writing for the rest of the story here, and I absolutely despise the lettering. It wasn't right. The writing, that's improper.
What's in the Sasquatch pizza box?
It's not a. Is there a pizza box that big? And if there is, I will eat that pizza. But nonetheless, just let me do my thing here, Dave. I apologize. I got to be quiet for this because I don't like doing the lettering, and I have to do the lettering. So
I know. Go ahead. Hi, Wallet Moth. How you doing? Bombshell Bomber. Nice to see you. Stephen Finnegan. Good morning to you, my friend. Let's all just really let Filth know that we are all watching him. We are all watching him ever so closely. Guaranteed he adds one spider to this. He always adds a spider to the big ones. Dirty Filth will be selling this piece after the show for $25 Canadian. $25 Canadian. All you got to do is reach out to him.
$100 American.
$25 Canadian, which is about $3 American, and a pair of nice socks because Filth loves his socks.
I dislike socks, Steve.
That's what the underpants gnomes steal out of the dryer all the time, is your one extra sock that's already gone.
Yep.
Hey, Bomber. Yeah, I'll tell you the best moment of the whole thing up there, Dave, was the first night I was there with Ashton. It was just the two of us were up there on Thursday night when Robin was on the show with you. And that's when the one came walking right by my tent as soon as I got in it. And then I waited about like 3 or 4 minutes, and I yelled over to Ashton in his Viking tent, and I went, "Hey!" And he goes, "Did you hear that?" And I went, "What did you hear?" And he said, "There was something walking around by my truck." Well, I'm not anywhere near his truck. Something walked past my tent. It might have been the same, whatever it was. But the next day we got up and we're all ready to go out and do some, exploring. And then the sky clouds over and it starts dropping grapple on us. And grapple is one of those high mountain things that people out on the plains never get to see. It's not hail really, and it's not sleet. It's like teeny tiny beads of hail. And so, old Ashton got chased in his Viking tent, and I sat under the pavilion and filmed it. And I put the camera down, waited about 3 minutes, and turned it on again. Went, well, now the ground's nice and white. It's still really coming down. Then I went and hung out in the tent for about an hour while we were waiting for that to go over. And by the time it finally cleared up again, then the amazing Michael Matt had made it there. And we were
all right, buddy. I got to cut you off right there because we're coming back in like 5 seconds, bud. Here we go. We're on the third. We're headed for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio and the Cryptid Report. It's been a great night so far. And on Duked Out Radio that we call it here.
You guys are hilarious. Just trying to remember all the high points. Well, I always trusted, since we had actual phone communication, I could actually call Robin occasionally and check up with her and go, hey, what are they doing? What's going on here? And then she'd talk to them and give me the info. And they got mad at us at one point because they thought we had basically broken the rules. And, those two guys have guns. And I went, what? And I said, hey, do you two guys got guns? And they both looked, well, yeah, they're in the vehicles. Okay, how the hell did they know both those guys had guns? I didn't even know that, right? And then I had to go walk into the woods and explain to them, the guns are for evil humans that show up. They're not for you. We're keeping them in the truck in case evil humans show up. Oh, okay, then we're all fine. So then apparently the last night we were there, it was me and Michael, and they got really brave. And one of the younger ones, who's about human size, so not very old, he decided to get really brave, and he was going to sneak up to camp and not touch one of us, but try and count coup on the pavilion. Apparently, I found this out later on. What I was experiencing is we had the Tibetan bowl music going from the YouTube, and they liked that. And so he was getting closer and closer, and I had this feeling there was something right over there. He was far enough back in the dark you couldn't see him. The campfire wasn't giving him any eye shine. He was smart about that. But I could sense a presence. I knew there was something over there. So I kept looking every so often. And right about the time I had a feeling he was getting really close, we hear this of some idiot trying to come into the ghost town at 1 o'clock in the morning with some little crappy vehicle bottoming out. And he gets halfway into town, then realizes he isn't going to make it, and has to go back down again in the dark, backwards, making a racket. Well, of course, that spooks the Sasquatch, who gives up on the whole effort. And Robin said one of the even littler ones said he wanted to come up and try it too. He's about 4 feet tall, but the adults wouldn't let him. So that was as close as they got to us, other than the one that walked through the camp, apparently, the first night. There was just too much human activity there. Too many other people there. So, and they got low trust level. And again, we're only up there like once a year. We're not up there every month like we are in the other research area.
Incredible. Do you plan, or let me ask you this, how come you only go up there once a year?
Coloma for us is kind of a sideshow because it is haunted. We've had ghost hunting teams up there. It blew their minds how haunted that place was. So any kind of weird paranormal stuff that's going on there, how do we know what's causing it? We don't know if it's Bigfoot or if it's ghosts. The other research area we go to, there's no human presence there. There never has been. There's no reason there should be any ghosts or anything like that. The only thing that's out there that we know of is Sasquatch and at least one dog man. So we've got a better baseline for judging what's going on, because we can pretty much assume that there isn't any other kind of ghost activity going on there. We've never seen any sign of aliens or UFOs or anything up there. It's strictly Bigfoot. So that makes for better baseline research conditions to try and figure out what's going on when you start getting some of this weird paranormal activity. Is a lot more likely it has to do with the Sasquatch than you've got ghost activity going on. See what I mean?
Right.
And also, because that place is so close to where there's people driving through all the time, during the summer when the road is open, there's people that just day trip drive through it. They see that sign for it and they're like, what is this? And they drive in and check it out. So there's people going through there all the time, which really disrupts them. And, when we used to have success was early in the spring when it was rainy and lousy and nobody would pull in there. And all the locals are scared of the place, so they won't go in there. And then we could sit there for like 2-3 days and no other humans would show up and they'd be all over the place.
Talk about the both being haunted and the cryptids being in there like Sasquatch. Have you ever had evidence that combined the two?
Well, yeah, and that's part of the problem. Sasquatch can mimic some of the stuff that they pick up with ghosts. They use a lot of the same equipment, actually. Bigfoot in Germany, Robert Boston, who's been on your show, he was one of the first guys that started carrying EM meters around with them and stuff. And he was strictly in a Bigfoot area over in Germany. And when they'd zap him, he had the EM meter would go off and tell him how bad it was going to hurt. And in some cases it was going to hurt really, really bad. He was literally peeing blood for the next couple of days. There's one area with one group that did not like him. And when he went in there, they would zap him. The other area, they didn't seem to care. The one that was the alpha there seemed to be fine with them. So he didn't have to worry about it there. But, Robert Boston has way too much gigantic balls, more than brains at that point. So he kept putting himself in this position where he's getting zapped. He's got one on video where he's recording. There's one over here on the hillside. You can see it on the video as he's panning past. There's one on top of the hill making a racket over here, which you can hear on the video. There's another one in front of him that's ducking down behind a log. And you can hear the sizzling noise as one of the chips in his camera that he's got on him is frying. He's filming with the other camera, and he pulls out his EM meter, and it's got a horrendous high reading on it. This is all on video.
Way too much, man. Way too much.
So
Holy.
They can do all kinds of weird things. So it's nice to know that at least you're only dealing with this one sort of thing. Now we can figure out what they're capable of doing, at least in a given area with a given group. We strongly suspect different groups have different abilities. Some of them don't really have any other than mind speak, and other ones can do all kinds of weird, crazy things.
Oh, I totally blanked on my question for you.
How much time do we got? I got a couple of pages.
We got about 8 minutes.
8 minutes? We got enough time to go through this. I got something I wanted to read for you guys tonight. Because everybody always asked me about my first encounter back in 72 when I was out sledding and what was that weird thing that you saw? Because I got a really good picture of it made and shopped it around. And I've only had 2 people on the internet that have looked at that picture and went, I encountered one of those things, and both of them came on my show. Now, since then, other researchers have been seeing gugwies and stuff, but the gugwies don't look like this thing did. So I'm still not completely 100% sure of what the hell this thing was that I saw, although I'm pretty sure it's not a Bigfoot. But if you get into this stuff, here's a good example of this, and it gets really confusing. And thanks to Lauren Coleman, who's the author of Bigfoot, The True Story of Apes in America. And he's got his own Bigfoot museum, and he's a very well-known cryptozoologist, written tons and tons of books. Anyway, he covered some of the weird etymology of the names used for things that were either Bigfoot or similar to Bigfoot in the Northeast. And in the Northeast, they did not have friendly relations with any of them. So here's what he has to say. In eastern North America, a specific subvariety of man-like hairy hominid allegedly exists. It exhibits aggressive behavior, hair covering the face in a mask-like fashion, occasional piebald coloring, an infrequent protruding stomach, and distinct curved five-toed splayed footprints, which a few hominologists have labeled these unknown primates taller or marked hominids, and others have written of them as Eastern Bigfoot. What may be in evidence is actually an Eastern geographic race, like a subspecies of the more classic Bigfoot. They're inhabitants of the northern forests to the east. The local Native American, Native Canadian, and Inuit accounts discuss the ancient traditions of these hairy human-like beings with words special for each linguistic and tribal group. Nevertheless, casual practice has begun to develop in the East in calling these hominids Wendigo, in association with a commonly used native regional name from long ago. The Algonquin linguistic group of the East and Upper Midwest of the United States and Lower Canada have used the terms Wendigo, Wendigo, Wheatigo, Wetico, Witico, and other variant names for these reported giants of the bush covered in hair. The antiquity of the subject matter is marked by places in geography and language. The Wetico Hills, the Mesabi Range, which is in northern Minnesota, that's where all the iron comes from, and Mesabi literally means giant. Numerous Wendigo and Wendigo lakes, they also have those in Minnesota, take their names from giants known to American Indians. Dictionary of Canadianisms on History's Principles mentions 18th century versions of Bigfoot called the Wheatigo. The Wheatigo were feared cannibals known to the Cree living in the vicinity of Hudson Bay. The Ojibwa knew the Wendigo. A 19th century account relates the Muskegos, who inhabit the low and cheerless swamps on the borders of Hudson's Bay, are themselves reproached by other tribes as cannibals and are said to live in constant fear of the Wendigoag, which is Wendigo plural. There are very few exchange of informations on these man-like hairy primates among many First Nations in eastern North America. In the eastern provinces of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia down into Maine, the Micmac tell of the Gugwe, quote, "These cannibals have big hands and faces like bears," unquote. Noted folklorist Elsie Clues Parson in her 1925 paper in the Journal of American Folklore says, quote, "If one saw a man coming, it would lie down and beat its chest, producing a sound like a partridge." You've heard a grouse drum before? You heard a gorilla beat its chest before? While the behavior attributed to this creature is puzzling, the theme of the one-tone whistle, like the call of the gray partridge, Perdix perdix of southeastern Canada, appears elsewhere as part of the unknown primate's behavior in America. And in my area, they make that one-tone whistle. The cannibalism attributed to the Wendigo is specific to these eastern hairy hominids. Anthropologist Grover Krantz, who seemed not to have studied these traditions, is to be excused for falling into the usual misunderstanding of these traditions of the Wendigo when he too quickly sensed that they have all been based on stories of cannibal Indians. The natives clearly thought of these hairy cannibal giants as non-Indians. The Micmac know the cannibal giant by the name of Gugwe or Kawakawi and Jenu or Chinu. However, Wilson D. Wallace and Ruth Sotwell Wallace in the Micmac Indians of Eastern Canada noted that, quote, "The Gugwes is a grotesque creature. In 1911 and 12, he was commonly compared to a baboon. In 1950, he was described as a giant." In the state of Maine, the Penobscot tell of the Kawakawi, a cannibal giant. The giant or Strendu, the averred enemies of the Wyandot, relates C.M. Barbeau in recording beliefs of the Huron and the Wyandot in the area of Lake Huron. He says, "Were dreaded on account of their extraordinary size and powers. Some describe them as being half a tree tall and large in proportion. Their bodies were covered all over with flinty scales, which made them almost invulnerable." And what he's describing there is the Genoskwa. The Strendu, too, are said to be cannibals. Again, a lot of these names are used interchangeably for some of these strange bipedal monsters that are in this area. So it gets really complicated trying to figure out which one they're talking about, because clearly in some cases they're talking about more than one thing. In upper New York State, similar beings were known as stone giants, and the stone giant is the Genoskwa. The Iroquois stone giants, notes Hartley Brewer Alexander in Mythology of All Races, as well as the Congeners, a member of the same class group among the Algonquins, like the Chinook, the Abenaki, and the Micmac, belong to a widespread group of mythic beings, of which the Eskimo Tornit is another example. Huge in stature, unacquainted with a bow, employing stones for weapons. In awesome combats, they fight one another, uprooting the tallest trees for weapons and rending the earth in fury. Commonly, they are depicted as cannibals, and it may well be that this far remembered mythic people is a reminiscence colored by time of ancient tribes. More of these peculiar primitive tribes are identified as noted by the First Nations as the Wendigo of Algonquin origin. Knowledge of the Wendigo is extensive and well documented in eastern and central Canada. The Tête de Belay of Quebec also used different names for this being: Witico, Qhht, and Atchin. The Chinoo of the Micmac seems to be similar to the Witico of the Cree. John Cooper in his article says both have the same characteristics. The very name Chinoo seems to be identical with the Montaigne and Tête de Belay name Atkin for the Witico. According to anthropologist Frank Speck, among the Naskapi, the nearest analogy in name and character with Atkin among neighboring peoples is the Chinoo of Micmac legend. The traits of the Witico, recorded by the Reverend Joseph Guinard in his article Witico Among the Tête de Belay in Primitive Man, recalls traditions elsewhere. Now, this guy actually lived with this tribe in the late 1700s. He was the first white man that lived with them and got this information. And here's what they told him, quote, "The Witico wore no clothes. Summer and winter he went naked and never suffered from the cold. His skin was black like that of a Negro. He would rub himself like the animals against fir, spruce, and other resinous trees. When he was thus covered with gum or resin, he would go and roll in the sand, so that one would have thought that after many operations of this kind, he was made of stone." And this is exactly the same thing that was attributed to the Janoskwa, except instead of rolling in sand, they were rolling in broken stone. So they're completely covered in stone armor, hence the name Stone Giants. John Cooper, who wrote The Cree Witico Psychosis and Primitive Man, he said the same habit is ascribed to the Passamaquoddy Chinoo, who would rub themselves with fir balsam and then roll themselves on the ground so everything adhered to the body. Habit highly suggestive again of the Iroquois and Stonecoats. It also says Wendigos are without lips, and the voice of the Witicos, notes the Reverend Joseph Guinard, was strident and frightful and more reverberating than thunder. The sound of his voice was a long, drawn-out one, accompanied with fearful howls. He is a huge individual, notes Guinard, who goes naked in the bush and eats Indians. Many people claim to have heard him prowling in the woods. Also in Quebec, the Grand Lake Victoria Band knows tales of the Misabi, a giant with long hair. Yeah, the Misabi is literally the red-haired cannibal giants. That's, again, a different thing. Canadian commentators of the unknown began remarking on the place of the Wendigo in the context of other creatures almost a half-century ago, bringing it forth in time. Explorer author Pierre Burton commented on the Wendigo, as did Canadian folklore researcher R.S. Lambert in 1955. Lambert wrote the Wendigo, or Wendigo, was a Canadian entity, half phantom, half beast, who lives in the forest and preys on human beings, particularly children. The belief in this horror dates back to the earliest Indian legends, and it said the Wendigo always eats the flesh of its victims. And there you go.
Nothing spicy about that, Super Duke. Nothing spicy about that.
Bland and boring, various types of cannibal monster giants living on the Upper East Coast.
Well, tell everybody where they can find Super Duke's World Bigfoot Radio.
Well, you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on BitChute, Odyssey, Bright Eon, and Rumble. And you can find my support groups on Facebook. It's Montana Bigfoot Project and World Bigfoot Radio, and also World Bigfoot Central on MeWe, which I'm on all the time. If you really want to find me, come on over, join MeWe.
All right, thank you, Super Duke. Let's get to Shirky Poo's news.
What time is it? It's time for Shirky Poo's news!
Well, if you were watching last night, you saw a bunch of cool stuff happening in San Diego, where there were reports of odd lights in the sky. We were showing you videos with Tim Senor and the UFO report, and from all over San Diego, orange lights seen in Tijuana, straight north to San Diego and elsewhere. Well, apparently, not to break your hearts, it's not aliens. No. Even though early reports earlier today said lifeguards identified the lights as flares, well, and a couple of military bases then said, we don't know of any flares. My sources, including Luis Elizondo, stated that they looked into this case very, very seriously earlier today. They wanted to get a briefing on it, and they are not UFOs. Now, what apparently they are is a marine drill for the U.S. Marine Corps, who is stationed in the area, and they were dropping flares with parachutes on them to hold them up in formation for an extended period of time, which is why at one point we see a triangle of 3, then a triangle of 6, and then the first 3 die out because they only last so long. Now, critics of this are saying, look, this went on for an hour or more. Don't know of any flares that last more than an hour. Could there have been more going on? My sources say no. No. We are all on tap for marine flares by the Marines. Sorry to disappoint, but that is the latest update that we have. Hey, I wanted it to be aliens too. You know me, I like aliens. I like some aliens. We need a little bit more aliens going on. Maybe clean up this planet a little bit. You know? Rid us of the gugways like my former mother-in-law. But no, unfortunately, swamp gas. That's what it comes down to. Pure, unadulterated swamp gas and flares. I know. But you know what? There was an interesting point last night where we were watching a video of the lights, and there was what looked to be a Boeing 737 taking off from the San Diego airport. I'm pretty sure if it was aliens, they would have grounded all the airplanes at the airport. So unfortunately, I hate to break your heart, but sometimes it's an emergency and sometimes it's not. And this time, it's not aliens. Thank you, Luis Elizondo, and my other source for tipping me off to that earlier on today. I appreciate that. Sorry to break our listeners' hearts, but that's the way it is. Thank you to Shirky Poo's News, Swamp Dweller for a great story, Super Duke for telling us his latest gig, and of course, Julie Parker for coming on in, talking about past life regressions. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyrighted by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night. All right, Super Duke.
Yay. Survived another show. Nobody got eaten by Wendigos or Gugly. We're all good. Made it back into the train station with the Woo Express.
We made it. We made it again. Hey, Gong Show, how you doing?
Yeah, I was just looking at the weather forecast, and I'm like, oh, every day between now and when I have to go camping, it's going to get colder. Just in
All
time for
the way
us to be up there, so it could be nice and brutally cold at night when we're there.
It is all on the way down now.
Yeah, and then as soon as we come back, it'll go back to 100 degrees. That's literally what it looks like they've got scheduled too. Oh, the 2 days you're up there, it's going to be really cold at night, but then it'll go back to 100.
You're like, well, thank you for telling me. I appreciate it.
Oh, God.
Did you have to call for the emergency dink while you were there?
Emergency dink. I wouldn't call for emergency dink no matter what. It was just amazing for us to actually have phone reception or be able to listen to something on the radio or anything, because inevitably when we're at one of these places, there's just nothing. There used to be nothing there. They must have put up another tower nearby so you can get better reception there now, because a couple years ago you couldn't get a cell phone signal or nothing. Now you can sit up there and like watch YouTube.
Makes sense.
Very strange. We're not used to it. We're used to you can't even call for help if you need it in most of the places we're at.
That's where you need to have a hotline to the emergency dink.
Yeah. Old emergency dink. Now, actually, I'm looking forward to getting one of those Starlink setups, because you can be in any god-awful place in the middle of nowhere and you can still get a signal with it. So you could literally live stream from most of these all the places we go to with one of those, which would be really cool. Because that's one of my favorite pet peeves with the Bigfoot channels, where they're like, "Oh, we're live streaming from the middle of nowhere." And you can hear a semi going down the road behind them, and you're like, if I can hear a semi behind you, you're not in the middle of nowhere. You're near a road with traffic on it. Literally to us, in the middle of nowhere means, okay, you're like 20 miles from a road.
That's just being a dumb dink.
Now you're in the middle of nowhere. You're 20 miles from a road. You can't get a cell phone signal. Rescue is not imminent. Calling for help futile. Now you're in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to actually play by rules, because if you make stupid mistakes, you win stupid prizes.
What the hell am I doing here?
I don't know. But Robin told me to tell you that you've got to take down some of your Walmart that you've got out there for your hairy buddies.
Take down some of my Walmart?
Yeah, like you've got way too much stuff in your gifting area. They get overstimulated very easily. I mean, if you bring them a marble, they're going to examine it for an hour to make sure it's not a bomb or a listening device or some damn thing, because they're so paranoid of everything. And if you amplify that by giving them lots of things to look at, they just get overwhelmed and they'll give up on it.
I will take some stuff down tomorrow, or not tomorrow, this weekend.
Just kind of take a look at it and go, okay, what do they want me to leave here? And see if you can just get a psychic read on what's one or two cool things that they would like that look non-threatening, and they can more or less guess what they are, not something so alien they can't even be sure. And just leave those, take all the rest of it back. And then in the future, you can bring them other things from that selection. But, like right now, that's just too much for them. It's too much for them to, like, look, we're at the same place for 7 years now. We've had close interactions with them up there. And just because there's people coming through that they don't recognize, they won't even get near us. Oh, walk through camp one night, and one of them got about 30 feet from camp. That's like, we've been up there before. We've had the whole camp surrounded all night long, and you can hear them moving around. Shane got up in the middle of the night to take a whiz. He's shining his flashlight on the pine trees, and he's looking at, pine tree, hairy pine tree, pine tree, pine tree. He's like, wait, hairy pine tree. So he brings the flashlight back. He doesn't stop with the flashlight on the hairy pine tree. That would be a bad tactic. He just swings slowly back with the flashlight. Pine tree, hairy pine tree, pine tree, pine tree. Well, he's seen Bigfoot before. They're right in his backyard on his property over in Spokane. So he knows exactly what he's looking at. Very big adult male with his back to him, pretending he's a pine tree. Shane's not falling for it. Quickly finishing taking a whiz, he zips his pants up, jumps back into his camper, and doesn't come out for the rest of the night. And one of my friends in their tent on the far side of our camp, about 150 feet away from us, there was two of the guys that had tent over there. One of them had sound equipment on that was set for a baseline of what the background noise was, and then anything unusual popped up, it would record it. So from the time he went to sleep, and there was a couple times the noise woke him up, but from the time he went to sleep until morning when he got up, every 15 or 20 minutes, it recorded sounds, footsteps by the tent, fingers going along the fabric of the tent, weird things like that. Like I said, at one point, he even got up and jumped out of the tent, tried to catch whoever it was, and there was nobody there. The only time that pattern of every 15 or 20 minutes was interrupted was for a 40-minute space, which happened right when Shane got out of his truck to take a whiz and saw the one in the trees pretending to be a tree. So they waited until he was asleep again. Then they went right back to what they were doing. Mike found the tracks of two 17-inch tracks, the one that was standing next to a tree right by his tent. And from where that one was standing, you could see every tent in our encampment all the way along and keep an eye on everybody in there. And apparently he was the lookout while the rest of them were running around messing with us. And I was the only one that didn't get messed with that night. Everybody else in every tent got messed with. They just left me alone.
Your hair was on par. That's why. Your hair was on par.
I've been up there a bunch of times before, and they're just like, yeah, we already messed with him. Let's screw with these other guys. No, Michael was blown away. Michael was the last one that got in his tent, and he had not even gone to sleep. Again, it was just like me the other night over there at Coloma, and he had just gotten into his bedroll, hadn't even begun to go to sleep yet, and he could hear somebody walking up. He'd hear a step, and then there'd be a pause, and then he'd hear another loud step, and there'd be a pause, and he'd hear another loud step. And he's sitting there thinking to himself, everybody's in their tents. I know what that is. He's walking right up toward my teepee. He's only like 15, 20 feet away from me. Doesn't he realize I'm not even asleep yet? Apparently he doesn't care. He's trying to get up to behind that tree so he can spy on the whole camp because all the rest of them are antsy to come in and start looking at everything.
Wow. That's impressive.
We've had, well, that's why we know they're up there. But again, this is like every year that we go up there now, there's more traffic, people going through during the summer, so it's disruptive to them. And as long as there's anybody else wandering around in town, they're not going to come pester you like that. So it's not that good of a place for research anymore. I like the place up in the Sapphire Mountains because, you know, you're 25, 30 miles in from each side to where there's a little town or anything. You are way out in the middle of nowhere. You're at about 7,000 feet in a bowl at the top of a mountain range. So there aren't people really coming and going. Let's just say that. You go in there, it doesn't go out anywhere. You have to just turn around and go back out again. So get very little traffic in there. So they're not quite so freaked out by it.
What do you think is generating the increase in traffic up there?
It's just the popularity of nearby Garnett Ghost Town. There's more people all the time that are realizing it exists, and they show up and look at it. And while they're driving the road to get there, they go by this little sign that says Coloma. Oh, what's a Coloma? Yeah, great. Now they're going to drive in and check it out. The locals will go up there during the day and ride ATVs around or horses or something. But as soon as it gets anywhere near dark, they leave. They won't camp up there or be up there at dark or no. But the tourists don't know that, so they'll come up there and camp at night, or they'll try and drive around it at night. And, you know, sometimes their little VW van gets chased out, and they have to go get pancakes early in the morning.
Oh, bear with me, buddy.
So yeah, it's a lot more enjoyable at the other area where there's hardly any traffic going in because there's nowhere to go in there. The only people that go in there are the locals that are trying to get firewood because big stand of trees up there burned down and forestry wants them to just remove them. They're standing firewood, basically. Cut them down, cut them into pieces, haul them out. It's free. So that's what a lot of the locals do to, heat their buildings during the winter. They get all this firewood from there during the summer. So that's really the only traffic there is. There's a guy comes in with a pickup and a chainsaw. About 2 hours later, he leaves with a pickup full of chopped up firewood. He's got all of his logs. The pickup's full. He's gone. And that's all you see up there. There's hardly anybody that goes up there to camp or anything else. During the fall, you see a little bit of people out there hunting, but not much of that either. Just because of the way it is, if you shoot something, you got to drag it through all this twisted fallen timber, up and down mountainsides. If you can't shoot it right next to the road, you probably don't want to shoot it. So it's not all that popular for hunting either.
Oh, you got a knock there.
No, that was just me moving my mug around.
Well, can we call it a desk knock?
Desk knock. Yeah, it was a wood knock. No, that was with the first time the second time I got my tent shaken was also at Coloma. It was the first time I was up there, and I had researcher X and her dog up there, and her dog and her 2 pistols were sleeping in her truck, and I was in my little tent outside with no weapons, and I had the campfire right next to me, and I was gonna get it all stoked up and ready to bed down shortly, and grabbed this one log that was a little bit too long, smacked it against the tree and broke it. Smacked it twice and it broke. And then I thought to myself, oh God, it's dead still. And that sounded exactly like a wood knock. That was really stupid. Soon as I did it, I'm like, oh, why did I do that? So I took both halves and I threw them in the fire. And after about 10 minutes, I got my tent. I was ready to go to sleep. And about 45 minutes later, my tent is being shaken back and forth wildly. And I sit up, and like the sides of the tent are hitting me on each side of my head. And I'm like, okay, this is not cool. I'm reaching around, trying to find a walkie-talkie. Finally, I managed to find that in the tent. Still getting hit in both sides of the head by the tent. Grab the walkie-talkie. Hey, there's something out here messing with the tent. Turn on the car alarm. She goes, I'm scared. I'm in the tent getting screwed with by a Bigfoot. You're in your truck with 2 pistols and a dog. Hit the damn alarm button. Finally, she hits the alarm button. Right away, you hear this whoop, 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 whoop. 4 steps running from my tent past her SUV and off back into the ghost town. And as he goes past her SUV, he goes whap and hits the side of it. Well, now she's freaked out. And I'm like, okay, I have to get up and calm her down. And so I sat in the truck with her for about 10 minutes or so, and we were talking. She's calmed down. The dog never really got upset about it. And so she goes, well, don't go right back in the tent. Keep me company for a little while. Okay. So believe it or not, we listened to an episode of Sasquatch Chronicles, which was a lot less spooky than what was going on with us at that moment. So it actually did calm us down. And then after a while, she just went, okay, I think it laughed out. I'm okay to be in here with the dog and my 2 pistols. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll go back out there with my thin fabric and nothing. But yeah, that was the second time they shook my tent. And that was, like I said, right away when I broke that piece of wood, smack, smack. I'm like, oh God, I'm stupid. Why did I just do that? It's dead still. It sounded exactly like a double wood knock. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to get company. Yeah, I did. Hey, quit pretending you're one of us and wood knocking. Whap, 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 whap with the tent. I'm like, he came up to this dumb gooba just wood knocked. I'm going to smack him around with his own tent. Yeah, fun times in Coloma.
Love it.
No, one time we were up there. That was the same time we were up there. Her license plate.
Tell the audience, dude. I'm gonna quickly go for a urine break here.
This is pretty funny, actually. She's got this nice new SUV, and she's got a couple of Bigfoot bumper stickers on it, and she's got a custom license plate that says Squatch 1 on it. Right, so she looks like a very official Bigfoot researcher, and we got it parked right next to where the mayor's house at the time was. It was still standing, And you could tell it was the mayor because it was out of the 84 buildings in town. It was the only one that wasn't made out of logs. It was actually made out of cut pieces of wood, just like modern houses. So he had money. And that's one of the reasons that it actually stood up until about 3-4 years ago. It finally fell down. It's just a pile of rubble now. But when we first went and camped up there was only like one wall had fallen off. The rest of it was still standing. So we just pulled the vehicle up next to that. And then I set my tent up beyond that. So that was a pretty cool setup. So we got the vehicle pulled in there, and there's occasionally people going through the access road on Coloma. They'll drive in, they'll look at all the old fallen down buildings, and they'll turn around, go back out again. So a couple of them stopped and kind of looked at the vehicle as they were doing their little route in and route out again. And one of them stops and goes, "Hey, are you with Finding Bigfoot?" And we're like, no. And the guy goes, "Oh, I saw the license plate. I thought maybe Bobo was over there." And I said, "Oh, if he was over here, all the Bigfoot would have left the area already." So no, we were not Bobo. We just had a Squatch 1 license plate. Anybody in chat room got questions? I got the chat room up. I can see what you guys are talking about. We've got dead air going on. So yeah, next weekend up in the Sapphire Mountains, back to the regular research area for the first trip of the year up there. Usually I'm up there by a month ago, but we just had miserable long spring this year. It was raining and cold and lousy. Does Sasquatch have humor like humans do? If you count the Three Stooges as human humor, yes, they do. Oh, they smell really good. They smell as good as a bloodhound. They have a great sense of smell. What do they smell like? They smell kind of like a wet dog or just like human BO. They don't have much of any smell to them. You have to usually be like right next to one to smell it. If they're putting out their stink cloud, that's a different thing. Okay, now the chat's really flying. So I have to go back up. I'm missing questions. Oh, yeah, save me that curry bomber. I still got 2 containers of my version of it in the fridge here. What do Sasquatch do for fun? Well, it's our belief that since they work in groups, they probably only spend 2 to 4 hours a day actually getting their food. So the rest of the time, they have to observe us, throw rocks at us, and generally laugh at our idiotic antics. Paul, because they weren't interested in hurting me. They were just making a point. Like, you're being annoying, stupid human. They're really not, like, really allowed to hurt us, basically. That's not part of their rules. They consider they're not allowed to hurt each other, and their rules include us as them. Like, unlike us who think they are monsters, they think they themselves are people, and they think we are people too. So they can do a lot to mess around with us, but they generally try not to hurt us. The ones that'll hurt us are ones that aren't following their own rules. So they're like, the Sasquatch version of a criminal anyway. Do I chat with anyone from Australia? No, I have one guest from early on in my show that's going to be coming back and not too much longer. He is currently doing research on not only the Yowies, but also the black cats that they've got down there. And he's actually seen one near the new property he's living on, which is why he got really interested in it. So he's doing research on that. They're trying to actually like dart one and get a piece of tissue so they can do a DNA sample on it and find out what kind of big cat they have there, none of which are indigenous, none of which should be there. Somebody brought him in at some point. King, I do not know. I have not ever seen Ball of Fire or orbs, believe it or not. As much as I've been around tons and tons of Bigfoot lots and lots of times, I've never seen orbs or UFOs around them. Dizzy me, they're up at night, so they don't have to worry about getting him to go back to bed. There's lots of reports of people who have smelled putrid odors in association with Bigfoot. There's some researchers that believe that's not even Bigfoot that are doing it. It's one of those other things that looks similar to them. And, yeah, for all we know, it could be that they can just let a fart when they want to. But in general, they don't really have any smell to them. And if you think about it, it's obvious why. Because they're not strictly herbivorous. They're omnivores like we are. So that means they're going to be hunting meat too. And if you're going to catch a deer or something like that, you stink. They're going to smell you coming, which is why most predators keep themselves nice and clean, because they have to be able to get pretty close to their prey without it smelling them in order to get a meal. Yeah, Paul, I've heard that before too, and I tend to buy that. That's my number one theory on where they came from. Makes perfect sense. There's a similar thing going on in England where a lot of people don't realize it, but they actually had passed a law that you couldn't have all these non-indigenous animals anymore. And rather than put them down or surrender them to authorities, some of these super rich folks that had these things just let them go. And that's where they came from. This is like back in the 70s. Yeah, YJ, you're right. And again, that's not always universal. Some bears don't have much of a smell to them. Other ones just got done playing in a garbage dump and rolling around in you know what, and they smell terrible. Did you get her done there, Dave?
Got her done, man.
You have to go drop a Trudeau off at the pond, or
No, it was just a simple, giving the bugs some Pisterine.
Got to go water the trees occasionally. The trees need water too.
Oh, yeah.
If you want the trees to go really fast, you get some of that special unicorn urine that Bomber sells.
Yeah, no kidding.
It doesn't cost much to ship it either. Now she's got it so she can crystallize it down. And then you can just add water back to it again when you get it. When you get your unicorn urine. Makes the trees grow huge.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Isn't that right, Bomber? Bomber's Unicorn Ranch. I like to joke with her that she's way down south in Canada, because she's in the eastern part of Canada and I'm in the western part of the United States. I'm literally further north than Bomber is, even though she's in Canada.
Mm-hmm. It's that one little dip there right by the Great Lakes.
Yeah, that's where she is. So even though I'm still in the U.S. and she's in Canada, I'm further north. Ha ha. Ha ha. And I did it without being in Alaska too. Yeah. Ooh, SOR discount 15% off if you use the code SOR 15
for unicorn piss. Right there.
Bomber's got the purest, most refined unicorn piss crystals available on the market.
Yeah.
Clearly, we've been joking about this for a long, long time already. This is a really old joke at this point. If you guys haven't heard this already, it's been going on for about 3. Save on your next order of unicorn pee. Yep.
It's all about the unicorn piss right there. All about the unicorn piss. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't wait to get back in the forest this coming week. It's going to be nice.
Uh-oh.
There you are. Where'd you go?
Oh, we're having bad connection issues here. There must be a storm or something going on.
Wouldn't surprise me. There's a lot of storms going on right now.
Doesn't usually happen. I got Ethernet connection too, so something major going on somewhere. Or maybe it's just because we talked about unicorn pee.
Maybe.
D says using unicorn pee makes you 40% less attractive to Gugwe. That's true. It gives you more of a rainbow flavor, I guess. Karen Palmer, only the purest for this crowd. Wonderful. Well, it's nice to see summer, beautiful weather again. People can go outside, get out in the woods, go camping, hiking, canoeing, swimming, have some fun, enjoy the woods. You're going to be stuck indoors for another umpteen months here pretty soon. Have fun while you can have it.
Right.
This becomes more my plan every year. Be in the woods as much as possible while it's warm and just wave the camera in every direction, constantly filming everything. Then I've got a winter long to go back and look at it and go, hey, there's one right there. I totally missed him, but I got him on video. Yeah, there you go.
Hey, why not? It all works.
Well, it's the same thing's going to happen in your area, Dave. You just need to be there more. The more you're there, the more they'll get habituated to your presence. The more they'll get less shy. They'll start getting closer. They'll want to check out what you're up to. Oh, they're laughing and they're playing songs and stuff. What are they doing? This sounds fun. Let's go check it out.
I'm not too concerned. You know, they will be there when they were there.
Yeah, you just got to be patient. That's the main thing. You got to be enjoying what you're doing besides them being there. You are enjoying camping. It's just that you're camping with a purpose. And sometimes you have to camp in the same place for a long time before, you start getting that interaction with them, whether they're there or not. Some groups, man, you're like there one time and they're all over the damn place. Other groups, you know they're around. You're finding their tracks. You're seeing structures. You never hear a vocal. You could go to the same place for 4 years in a row, all the time. Nothing. All of a sudden one night, boop, there they are. They're just, every group is different. You don't know what the hell you're going to get, basically. So you just got to really be patient, really enjoy going to that same area all the time and camping out, regardless of whether any Bigfoot, anything happens. You got to still want to keep coming back. So you want to independently want to go camping there, regardless of if there's Bigfoot or not. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%.
And that tends to work. That that kind of attitude. If you focus too much on thinking about them all the time, it's kind of counterproductive. It's like you want to, yeah, they're here, but so what? Let's go check this out. This would be fun. Let's tell stories. Hey, you guys want to do this? As long as you're in the area and you've got a good mood going, you're having fun, everybody's happy, nobody's waving guns around, firing in the air. That they're going to tune in on the attitude. Basically, they're reading your surface intentions all the time. And if you're there having fun and you just love being there, you love the area, it's so gorgeous. Drop quick compliment on how gorgeous the area is audibly. Like literally we do that. We're like, buttering them up all the time. We find their tree structure. We find a new tree structure. Here's our modus operandi. One or more of us films it. One or more of us walks around and comments on it. And the comments are very positive. And we always thank them for letting us look at their tree structures. And we tell them how awesome they are and incredible and unbelievable. And we're so lucky we get to see them. And then guess what? Then we go back and we look at our video and we realize they were there. We just didn't see them at the time, but they heard every damn word we said because they were right there watching us. So it's nice to be respectful like that. This is what the natives are talking about when they're saying be respectful. You can go one step further and just butter them up if you want to. Praise the hell out of them, pretend you're their paparazzi. The more you do that, the more they're going to like you. All the humans are very respectful, and they appreciate the coolness of our structures. Maybe we should leave a few leaners so they can find this one over here.
Whatever they want, they'll let us know.
Yeah, well, they try. We've gotten to the area. it almost feels to us now like the ones up there think, well, like we're their paparazzi. Like we're the film crew that shows up once a year to film all their cool structures and show the rest of the world that they have the coolest structures on Earth or something. I mean, I know that's all like my perception of it, but it's so bizarre what they're doing most of the time. And they just don't have any issue with us being at these giant structures, which you'd think it'd be like, oh God, that's like one of their most coolest things. And they would rigorously protect it and squash you like a bug if you got near it, you know? No, they're following us around the whole time. We're sure catching them on video up and up. God. But they just let us go right there. That's all good and fine. And okay, guys, go enjoy yourselves. Tell us how great everything is. Robin's told us, certain things that they don't like don't touch their structures, don't move things around, don't leave things hanging on their structures. We've done that before. We let them little goodies, like the gold star on your report that you got from the teacher when you were in third grade or something like that. Ooh, this structure is awesome. Leave them a little gold star on it, No, as it turns out, they don't like that. Although we can leave them on things nearby, not on the structure. You're not supposed to touch it. You're not supposed to move it around. It's like, okay. But we didn't know that. We're just stupid humans. They had to bitch to Robin, and then she had to tell us to knock it off.
Makes sense, dude. Makes sense.
Fun with the big fuzzy mountain, guys.
Burn out today, man.
According to Robin, you got a good-sized crew over there where you're at. You got probably as many or more than I've got up in the valley that I do research in.
Wow.
Other than the two that left recently and went wander off somewhere. They'll probably be back soon. Apparently, I got about 24 of them up in my main area.
We're going to head on out tonight, my man. It's that time to head on out.
Well, it was fun hanging along with you here after hours. And sorry to be the bearer of bad news from Robin, but...
hey, I don't mind.
No, we want you to be successful. And really, remember, like I said, it's all... If you keep doing the same things over and over again, they love that boring routine. And this kind of falls into the same category where it's like they get too easily overstimulated, especially with things they're not used to looking at. And they just go, it's too much, and they're not interested and don't want to have anything to do with it. Where if you leave them just one or two really cool things to look at, there's a lot better chance that they're going to want to interact with it, or they might even go, well, this is really cool, and take it. And Robin's done this before, too, where she's left them a whole bunch of different stuff, and it's just sat there for months, and they don't touch it. And then you take almost all of it away and leave like 1, 2, or maybe 3 items, and you come back a day or two later, and it's gone. Don't expect me to explain their psychology, but it has something to do with their ADD, and they will focus in so much on any one thing. And if they can't dissect it mentally what it is, it's too dangerous and I don't want to interact with it. So if you've got too many of those types of things there, it just overwhelms them. They don't want to spend the time looking at all of them to figure it out. Any of them could be a booby trap. To them, everything is a booby trap until they discern that it's not.
Makes sense, brother.
All
Makes
right.
sense.
I'm out of here.
Tomorrow night on the show, everyone, we have Richard Banak coming on. We're going to be talking remote viewing and astral travel. Yeah. Richard's one of the best at this. So we'll see you all tomorrow night. Thank you to Lala and Sally for the amazing super chats. Much love to each and every one of you. Thank you for everyone who's given us a thumbs up. And we'll talk to you tomorrow night.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.